And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, yeah.
Attention to roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time. And of course, it's Monday morning back after a weekend. Here we are with Finest Unfiltered, John, myself, and Marlon. I think this is going to be a great episode. So if you're an active NYPD cop, you should be listening to this right now. And who cares what they say at the top? It's your right, First Amendment right, your freedom of expression. Put it on, watch the channel, and you know what? We got your back. And with that being said, also, if you're retired, you should be watching this also, because you're probably saying to yourself, man, was it too cold for me outside too? Let's jump right into it, John. I think this is a great discussion. I think that the union should be jumping all over this. So let's back up the cops on this one. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely, man. First off, Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow, so it's going to be a long winter. 6 more weeks of winter, people. Last time that happened, remember when Bill de Blasio killed Punxsutawney Phil? Well, he didn't kill Punxsutawney Phil. He killed the other groundhog. But that was hysterical.
Thank God, former Mayor Bill de Blasio got the COVID vax, right? That must have helped him out with the. What was his name at the time? The groundhog that he killed. Do you remember?
I don't remember. But that was just a perfect. That was just a perfect showing of New York City politics, right? Oh, look, we're gonna show you the groundhog. He's like, kills it, Idiot.
Yeah, there you go.
Moron. So we're gonna be talking about a bunch of things. We're gonna talk about mobile field force, like what's going on. Should it be used in inclement weather? If it's even effective when it's not inclement weather. Definitely gonna be talking about the ties to Epstein, to Zohran Mamdani's family, himself, Jessica Tish, her family, right? Like her cousin, another cousin tied to Epstein. It seems like everyone in New York City politics is tied to Epstein, right? And then we're definitely going to go over a couple of the crazy bills that are coming out of New York City Council. And I'm looking forward to it. So what's up, Mark?
Yo, good morning, guys. Good morning, chat. It's mighty cold up here in New York right now. It's currently 14 degrees Fahrenheit. But that ice isn't melting over here until like April now, So I was telling John earlier before we got on that the cold I can stand, but the ice sucks. If you guys think my mic is low, let me know.
No, you're good, bro. You're good.
Huh?
You're good. Yeah, you're loud.
That's usually one of your main issues, but you got it down.
Yeah, guys. So we feel for you guys who are on footposts right now. You really, especially those who were outside on footposts late last night. As we'll get into it, I don't think the weather's that really shouldn't be the case. You should be in cars right now. If there's an issue with the homeless people outside there right now, which a couple of them have already died, it's a big problem to have you guys out there in like this such a low temperature. Considering I don't think the perps are coming out. At this weather, you should be in cars. But we'll get into it, and we thank you guys for joining us this morning.
So I was looking into this because you have to balance out, in my opinion, you have to balance out what's best for public safety and what's also good for morale and also the health and wealth, the mental health and physical health for NYPD officers, especially the ones that have their boots on the ground. So are footposts effective? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Depends on the scenario. In the summertime, when people are outside, I think footposts are extremely effective, right? Especially with it could alleviate large crowds somewhere. As when we started our careers doing impact, footpost as a crime deterrent in certain neighborhoods, certain locations that might be omnipresence might be a great factor. But in frigid cold weather, such as now, when no one is outside anyway, is it really effective? To me, it's more abusive than anything. So, and listen, I was in the Marine Corps, the NYPD. I always believe you should be, you should be gritty and have that vibe. But at the same token, we also have to take care of our cops and make sure that they're healthy. And keeping them out in the cold, I think, is absolutely ridiculous. So I've done some research on this, right? So I was looking into this, and I spoke about this last episode. I have a friend I made spending time in Alaska, and he cuts down trees in Alaska. And he told me at certain temperatures they can't work. Why? Because metal starts to freeze, and also your body starts to become more adaptive to frostbite. So once the skin is exposed at certain temperatures, the skin can get numb, and because of wind, it can turn red, and you can immediately get frostbite, and just by being outside certain weather. So I've been looking this up. So if it's anywhere from 20 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit, it's generally safe to be outside in 15-minute intervals. All right, that's just at 20 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. We're not talking about what it feels like, because that's something else we should talk about. So when it's 10 to 20 in Fahrenheit, it's borderline to be outside for 15 minutes, and your exposed skin can go numb. And you need gloves and hat. That's non-negotiable. And obviously, if you're a cop, being outside with gloves, depending on the type of gloves you have, that could also be a detriment to you also. Now, if it's 0, this is where it gets real crazy. If it's 0 to 10 degrees, it's too cold for most people. That's what we're talking about right now. I think, Lon, I think you said it was 14 degrees. But the fact is, what does it actually feel like? And so I've read it and got different reports. But right now, what I'm understanding is in New York, it feels about -7 to 10 degrees. And in that weather, frostbite for people kicks in about 15 to 30 minutes. So, and the wind makes it even far more dangerous. So we're talking about unsafe weather. It's extremely cold for anyone, and cops are no different. They're outside freezing to the point that they're potentially exposed to getting frostbite, obviously getting sick. That the reason why you get, it's funny, we used to say, right? You guys probably used to hear the same thing. My mom used to tell me when a kid, you better put your hat on. If you don't put your hat on, you're going to catch a cold, or wear your gloves. I'm like, growing up, you realize you don't get sick from the cold. But what happens is when it's cold, your immune system breaks down because your body has to work harder to keep yourself warm. That's why if you get exposed to something viral or bacteria, you end up getting sick. But the bottom line is, being outside in these weathers for more than 15-minute intervals is extremely dangerous. And this is how we treat our cops. It's just another point to say, wow, look at how we treat our cops. Now I can understand if there's a crime scene or some type of exception. Sometimes we have to be out there. We have to find a way to keep ourselves warm. But just to stand the footpost, it's abusive, it's not effective, and it's just plain stupid.
I think the problem is, I think most people this is what they signed up for. You're going to be out there 24/7. You're going to be out there in inclement weather. Who cares? You're making a lot of money. Stand on the post. And I think that the point that gets missed with that argument is, we don't talk about, is it effective use of your tax money? Is it what you want the police to be doing? Maybe you do. Maybe you want them to stand out there and be tortured and freeze pointlessly. If that's what you want, then that's what you're getting. That's what your tax dollars is going to. You're going to pay somebody $200,000 a year to stand outside, be cold, be miserable, and do exactly nothing. I have a problem with mobile field force as a whole. I think it's a huge, huge waste of money, like a ginormous waste of money. However, I could see in times of crime spikes, I could see in times of when we have gang wars going on, when there's a rash of shootings, I could see a point in deploying large numbers of officers to a certain area. And then at that point, yes, we talk about, will it displace crime? Yes, absolutely. But to calm the tensions and to calm the moment in a specific neighborhood, in a specific location, absolutely. Mobile field force could be a good thing and could be utilized properly. But when you talk about being out in inclement weather for absolutely no reason, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's pouring raining. I don't care if it's snowing. I don't care if it's extremely hot. If you're standing out overnight on a footpost, outside, or in a train station, and nobody's there, It's not an effective use of manpower. It's not an effective use of tax dollars. It makes absolutely no sense. So what's mobile field force, right? It's kind of confusing, right? Because it sounds like, oh, well, mobile field force, they'll be mobilized and move all around. But that's not exactly what it is. They move them around, but they're not mobile at all. They're stationary, they're footposts, right? And so a lot of what's happening on mobile field force, it's a big reason a lot of people are retiring. They don't like doing it. It takes them out of their normal routine. It takes them out of their normal tour, meaning, if you work, I don't know, let's just say you work 9 to 5. But on Wednesday, you work 9 to 5 most of the week. But on Wednesday, you got to work overnight. And then the next day, you still got to do your regular tour, right? Or however that works, right? It throws you completely out of your schedule. It sends you all over the city. And at the end of the day, all of these cops, and the majority of them are senior cops that are out there. They're like, I don't know what I'm doing out there. I mean, everyone I speak to that does it, I'm like, how many arrests do you make when you're on mobile field force? 0. How many summonses you write when you're on mobile field force? 0. How many 911 calls you respond to when you're on mobile field force? 0. I'm like, would you say that mobile field force is a good thing? And they're like, no, I think it's ridiculous. I mean, some guys like it because they make money doing it. You know what I mean? They're like, whatever. I go put my uniform on. I stand on this footpost. I make $100 and something an hour. I don't do anything. Okay, whatever. But to put cops out there while you have a code blue going on in New York City, and now all of a sudden we're backing off of, oh no, everyone has the right to stay on New York City streets. We even had Donovan Richards, big supporter of Zohran Mamdani, come out and say that we need to tear down these homeless encampments and start to do involuntary removals off of New York City streets. I mean, you got to say, like, the weather's pretty bad, and if people shouldn't be out there, and we're not going to put our animals out there, and we're not going to bring certain equipment out there like drones or anything else, should the cops be standing out there for extended periods of time? And obviously, the common sense answer is going to be no. But, I think the disconnect there is you have a billionaire heiress as the police commissioner. She's never stood a footpost in her life. She's never experienced that type of cold for long extended periods. And I don't think she's looking at it as a whole. So rumored that LePetri, I think Sal had put out that LePetri canceled mobile field force, and she got wind of it and put it back on. So last Thursday, they actually did. It was so cold they canceled mobile field force, but it was right back on the next day. Over the weekend, they moved all of the mobile field force down into transit. But again, last night, they're back out on the street, and last night was freezing cold. So, but even just the use of that manpower and putting them out, and the funds and the money that's being wasted to go, oh, well, just go stand down in transit and flood transit. Again, if there's a pattern, if there's a crime trend, totally get it. If the community is complaining, I have no issue with it. To do it just to do it, which it seems like the majority of 95% of it is to do it just to do it, makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, I think the problem with mobile field force, and we talked about it before, is that it all it does is it's temporary plugging a problem that the job has, and that problem is like they don't have enough manpower. So what it does is, and she kind of said it herself in her State of the NYPD speech in early 2025, basically that their whole approach to crime fighting is on zones policing and surging those zones with cops. So I think that's where the mobile field force comes in. And again, the problem with that is that the people most familiar with a location are the people that are local. The people that have been in a precinct for how long, they know the neighborhood much better than some guy who's brought in from an outside command, from an outside precinct, which potentially is like half a borough away, or in some cases a full borough away, So it's a measure that they're using to solve a long-term problem that they have, which is they don't have enough people. And I think perhaps one of the reluctance to remove the mobile field force is because her entire strategy in policing is so dependent on it, and they seem to have no real long-term solution to the manpower. I mean, sure, she talks about the how large the last rookie class was, but again, we haven't gotten any updates to that, and we're never gonna, because how many guys actually graduate from the academy, and also how many of them actually stay on to become cops, for long term, and how efficient are they in replacing a guy who's had who has 20 years, 25 years, yeah. But so I think the problem is her strategy depends so much on the mobile field force. That's where that reluctance comes into play.
So I often hear, well, cops are supposed to be tough, right? Same thing, Marines supposed to be tough. But let's not pretend that this is about toughness. I don't think this is about toughness at all. Putting cops standing on post in 10-degree or negative-degree weather. And you know what's interesting, right? If you look at Fahrenheit, the numbers, as you get closer to 0, Fahrenheit and Celsius start to even out. It's quite interesting, right? Because 32 degrees is freezing. But as you get in the negative numbers, or even about 5 to 10 degrees, it starts to even out with Celsius. So if you look at the Celsius scale in Fahrenheit, they start to even out. It's pretty interesting how that works. Now, when it comes to cops standing outside, to me, that doesn't enforce discipline. That it's not about optics or toughness or grit. To me, it's just complete bad policy. It's just a bad policy because, first of all, if your cops are standing out there on a foot post, and we all know, we've all been out there. Now the cops are, if you're retired, you remember the days if you're out there freezing and you took a pen out, you try to write something down, it didn't work, right? Your pen doesn't work in freezing weather. But, John, you remember that? Because when we started the job, we had pens. You remember, like, damn.
Yeah.
First of all, too cold. You can't even write a summons. But now these kids have a phone. Right? I'm sorry I say kids, but the new cops have phones. Their fingers are frozen. Your fingerprint is not working on your phone anymore. Your phone is frozen. First of all, you can't even feel your fingers anymore. Do you remember those days you grab the pen and you're trying to write? Your dexterity is all messed up. I remember you start to look like a no offense to anyone, a paraplegic, but you can't even write. Your hands all cramped up. Your pen doesn't work. The same thing's going on with these cops out there with the phone. I just think it's ridiculous. They can't even use their dexterity because they're so cold outside. They're working so hard. And yes, believe it or not, when you're standing and pulsing, that your body's working so hard to keep warm that you're not thinking clearly anymore. When you're out there in certain temperatures, and I did very minor forms. It's an actual cold weather training for Marines in Norway, but I did a small form of it a few times out in the field. It was kind of like a minor version. And you learn about how your body really starts to shut down and your capability thinking starts to shut down. And when your skin gets exposed, certain parts of your skin are more apt to get in frostbite. This is, like I said, it's not about toughness. This is about bad policy. And I would put my money on it that no one at the top has ever looked into these things. Like, how long should the cops be out there? How many minute intervals? Now, I get it. Sometimes they may have to be out there, but then cops should be prepared to have cold weather gear. They might say, hey, listen, we have something exceptional going on. You need to have your cold weather gear. Maybe that's what they should look into, getting cops cold weather gear for certain temperatures, certain times. But to just be out there on a foot post and just, layer up, that doesn't work, because that's even worse when you're out there. And if you, and this is the part I used to find, if you wear too many layers and you start to sweat, that's where things get real bad. If you start to sweat and you're out in the cold, things get worse because now your skin is really soft and you could definitely get frostbite. And once you get frostbite, it's not reversible, especially how bad it can be. It could be so numb, it could get to the point where you have to lose limbs. So as I said before, I think this is bad policy. They're not effective anyway. You're not chasing anyone down. And anyone knows, we've all been there, right? When you chase someone in the cold and the last thing you want to do is get into a physical confrontation. If anyone's ever had to deploy a strike in freezing temperatures or wrestle with anyone, fall down, your body feels like frigid bones. It's the worst experience. So, again, this is bad policy.
Yeah. Mikey G says weather is the best policeman. Great line, Mikey G. And we know what's happening after this cold snap, right? Historic lows in crime. It's because we had cops standing on footposts when no one was around, and doing nothing. It was because of Jessica Tisch's brilliance that crime was down the end of January to February at historic lows. It's like, no, it was because of the weather. It was because of the weather, So
you got to read Patrick Donahue's comment, John. You got to read that, bro. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's I can't even say. I don't say it. Read it. What is it?
It says Irish male member of service turned into turtles during frigid temps.
Yeah, but look, I remember as a rookie, and you probably remember this, Eric. They put us out in we were in the 120. They put us out in Port Richmond, and it was freezing. It was January. It was snowing. Every single business was closed. There was one deli that was 24 hours. There was not one business that was open. And they were getting a rash of burglaries. And so what they did is they deployed rookies throughout all of Port Richmond Avenue, like in pairs and twos, but it was although I think Impact was way more productive than Mobile Field Force, because you had young guys out there looking for activity. I just remember those evenings thinking how stupid this is, because you got to think, it's the height of broken windows theory. It's the height of policing. They have these young rookies out. They had us all volunteer, right? Like I volunteered. They're like, who wants to learn how to be a cop? I'm like, me. And then I said, next thing I know, I'm standing on Port Richmond Avenue. It's freezing. It's snowing. There's not even a business to stand in, and we had inspections come by, scratch us 3 times. You had one idiot sergeant who was just promoted. I'm not even kidding. And I'm going to blow him up right now. His name was Sergeant D. Simone. He had 7 arrests, I think he had Eric Adams numbers. So he had 7 collars for his career, was a big boss fighter in the 123, got promoted. They put him in the 120, and then he wanted activity.
Yep.
So he would literally come around 3 times a night, with inspections coming around 3 times a night. And he would be like, what type of activity do you got? And I'm like, there's not even a car parked on the avenue. Like I was like, I don't have anything. And he was like, he's like, you don't have nothing? I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I'm like standing here, and so there was an unmarked down the block. They witnessed what happened, so they pulled up. They're like, what was he saying to you? And I was like, nah, he wanted to know what kind of activity that I had or whatever. And they were like, screw him. Go stand in this building, sit in the car with us. They took us in the car. They took me in the car. They drove us around. Then they dropped me back off. They're like, stand in here in this doorway over here. Screw
him. Those guys were great.
And he's an idiot, and like I think that's the one element that is missing now, is that there's no one that will just step up and be like, all right, this is a bad order. And so what happened is, it was a cold winter. So the next night, they were just like, screw this. They just picked us all up on our footposts, took us around, showed us all the crime prone locations, all this stuff. Inspections came around. None of us were on post. They're like, where is everybody? And it was literally a senior cop. And he was like, oh, I have all of them with me right now. I'm taking them out. I'm doing training. It's freezing out here. There's no reason for them to be standing out here. There's not a soul in sight. There's not a car on the avenue. There's zero reason to be here. And, it wasn't a big deal. It got called up to the CO. The CO didn't make a big deal of it. And I think, that's the one thing that's missing now, is the level of care of cops, that even if there's a dumb order and even if it doesn't really make sense, you'll just make the best of it, and your guys around you will make the best of it. And even if you have that one idiot boss or that one idiot inspections guy that's coming around, overall, nothing's going to happen to you anyway. They'll take care of you. Do your job. Don't leave you. Don't mess around at work. Do your job, and you'll be fine. But we're not going to leave you out there to freeze to death.
Yeah, when we were rookies, we had a bodega that we used to go to. Yeah. So when it got really cold, there's a bodega. We would just go and, get some food, go in the back of the bodega and eat, and we get a heads up when the boss was coming to scratch us, and then we just run out and we've been on post. But yeah, those frigid temperature days, those really suck, I'm gonna say that one of the problems with Mobile Field Force again is that guys, the the instructions aren't as clear. Like you said, John, that the impact was I think you said it was more effective. Yeah.
Yep.
But I think it's because, again, those guys are there long term. You have clear guidelines, and as you mentioned, they're youth on their side too. But if you're a guy who just been brought in to like a detail in Manhattan, in Brooklyn North, and you're from a Brooklyn South command, you're unfamiliar with the location. You haven't you're unfamiliar with the precinct itself and the dynamics of a precinct and who's there and who's the bosses and all that stuff. Are you really going to be looking to make a call? Most people aren't. Yeah. And most people, it's a detail where you might be on your regular day off, so you really don't want to be there either. Are you going to take a call that may necessitate you spending even more time in the precinct there that you're unfamiliar with? So it's an entire dynamic that's like, I I don't think it, like John said, is as efficient as having long-term personnel in that command. But I'm also gonna say, John, that the other issue is that, like, when we were rookies, I think our bosses tended to be older guys with more time on. Whereas nowadays, you look at a lot of these bosses and they look like high school kids. The sergeant looked like he just graduated. So I think that lack of experience also and a lack of kind of wisdom also is something that maybe hurts the job, because these young guys I don't think they'd be as willing to tell you, hey, listen, kid, it's cold, go inside, stay warm. I don't think they'll be as likely to tell you that as the bosses when we were there, because they were older and they were more experienced on the job. Whereas these younger guys they have less experience, less time on the job. They just made boss with they literally got off probation and they're a boss now. So I think it's different. Plus, you also have the body cams to keep in mind, and God knows if they're tracking those body cameras now. I mean, like, I don't know if there's any location tracking in that yet, but we already know that they could activate it remotely to view you. So it's things are very different now than when we were rookies.
And the phones too. You're 100% tracked on the phone.
True,
like they have you pinged on the phone too.
True, absolutely.
I've seen it.
Absolutely. So it's a completely different dynamic. And again, these are things that these are the little minutiae nobody really talks about. But if you think about it, it really like changes it really changes things a lot. It really does. Makes it more like technocratic and more micromanagement.
I think you're right. It creates more of control, and it does. And I think that part of technology is what actually cuts into and makes leadership an epic fail, because any form of micromanagement, and I've learned, my passion is reading about leadership, and any form of micromanagement is always a detriment to an organization, right? It's a failed leadership response. If you look at different types of leadership, delegative, authoritative, micromanagement is one of the leadership styles, is always the bottom of the list. It's an epic fail. Sometimes it's necessary for a short stint to fix something that's going on, but as a long-term leadership style, is completely ineffective. Now, look, I had some baby face looking bosses too. In my career, some of them looked like they just came out of cash sales at a One Police Plaza, but they were good. And the reason why they were good is because we had a better leadership apparatus throughout the entire police department. So I think KB in New York City, I think you said it right here, best comment of the day so far. What's missing? Balls. We traded balls for ball gags. That's the difference. We had good leadership back there because, John, even though there was some, there was a mix, right? There was some sergeants or lieutenants that weren't the greatest, but as a whole, we had good leadership and they had a lot more balls, whereas most of those sergeants and lieutenants would have stood up to their commanders and said, hey, I get it. They're supposed to be on this footpost, but I move these guys around, let them get some training, let them warm up. It's just too cold outside. But right now, what we have is just complete micromanagement that everything's black and white. They said, stand outside. They said, stand on this corner. That's what you do. There's no emotion involved. There's no camaraderie. I do believe all the technology that we have in the police department also removes the compassion that we have for each other. We've lost a lot of that social camaraderie that we have with each other because of technology, right? You know, those days where your sergeant would come up to you to check on you, or your lieutenant. I think many times they were coming, right? They would scratch your books, but I think they were also checking on you. Maybe they didn't want to say it, right? Because, you know, we don't want to be soft, but I think they were also checking on you. And that's the difference. Also, we lost that veteran apparatus, and it started with the COVID mandate. Because back then, and to all those plainclothes guys, they used to pick us up on our post and check on us. Shout out, because those guys were great. All those guys in the 112, man, they were good. They made you laugh. They came up to you, they broke your balls, but you know what? They broke your balls, they broke your chops, but they threw you in the back of the car. They said, warm up. Playing those guys like, hey, I remember playing those guys like, yo, you cold? We got you. And they would come by, bring you a cup of hot chocolate or a cup of coffee. They actually showed you cared. They took you in the car, you know, and they made you feel a part of something. That's the difference. Like, you're a rookie, you stand there like, this sucks, like everything else. But at least those guys you felt supported. Like, there was light at the end of the tunnel. Like, eventually I could get to that point. You know, I could be those guys, and then I could pass the torch and help people. But there's no one to pass the torch anymore. With the COVID mandate, the emasculation of the police department, I'm gone, Marlon's gone, John's gone. Look, all these people, we're all gone from the police department. So who's going to help these guys out? So KB in New York City, you're right. What's missing is balls. We traded in for ball gags, and we got weak leadership at the top. You know, good job by LaPetria. I call him a jellyfish for trying to take the cops out. Hopefully it was because of the cold. So good job there. I have to say that's great. And it has to make sense. And as I said, sometimes it's completely necessary. There may be a crime scene or something's out of control, and the guys have to be out there, but they have to do it smart. Hey, we're going to rotate every 10 minutes. You'll stand outside for 10 minutes. Someone else will come outside. Listen, I know I've done some research. The military in Siberia, when they're out there, every 8 to 10 minutes, they have to switch. Someone has to be outside. They can't be out there for more than 8 to 10 minutes because of the cold, frigid temperatures. And right now in New York, it's like Siberia. So these guys are outside. It shows that the upper echelon, the leadership, has not done their research to see what cold temperatures could actually physically hurt their cops and how it could emotionally help them. Because once they get too cold, their critical thinking, if you have any left with this job, breaks down. So they're not caring. They're not looking into, hey, what type of cold weather gear should they have? What type of apparatus should they have to actually be effective? And if there's absolutely no one outside, what are you doing there? The only dummy stand there is the poor cop. Like, Ben, there's no one out here. What you saw you, and it shows there's absolutely no plan. So it shows that right now, this mobile field force that they move around, when there's absolutely cold temperatures and no use for them, they don't know what to do with them. And as John said before, they just stuff them down in transit because there's zero plan. They don't know what to do. That's a problem. So one, they don't have a plan. Two, they don't have a backup plan. So epic fail.
Yeah, look, the other thing is, you know, if the post is in fact a priority post, right? What's the big deal if you just now you could actually utilize the resources a lot better and expand that post out? I mean, look, you know, we're pretending like this is the middle of the day, businesses are open. They're not. The businesses are closed. No one's out on the street. If someone's out on the street, you could see them 3 blocks away. You know, if someone's driving around, you could see them 3 blocks away because there's so few people out, right? It's so much easier to catch perps that actually are doing something at that point. If there's a robbery, whether they're in a car or on foot, it's so much easier when New York City's less dense. So at that point, expand the post out. You could take a guy, 2 guys that you have standing on a footpost, freezing their ass off for no reason. Be like, yeah, bring a car. Here's your sector. You're going to drive around this sector with lights and sirens. Excuse me, with your lights on if you want to use them as a deterrent, or just have them roam around in that area and do like basically a grid. And then that is going to be more of a deterrent than these 2 idiots useless idiots standing there freezing. You know what I mean? And I don't mean to call you guys idiots, but it just is what it is. Like when you're just freezing doing nothing, I mean, like, it's like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? I mean, good for you to get paid to stand there to freeze, but it's kind of not effective use of manpower whatsoever, you know? So there's that. The other thing is the rumor that we were getting is that, and I don't know this to be true, by the way. I don't have this confirmed, but the rumor was that when LePetri shut it down on Thursday, Tish had said, you know, who gave you don't have that authority to shut down mobile field force. I mean, like, I hope that's not true because he's the chief of department. He absolutely has that authority. But it does sound, you know, it sounds like it has some teeth to it. So, you know, it's funny. Saturday night, I was like, I had a pretty rough weekend this weekend. So I was up at like all these weird hours. So I just couldn't sleep Saturday night. So I was like, let me go through messages that I never go through. So I go through like all these message requests, and it was like one after the other from like the last week of people complaining about mobile field force, about how it's freezing, they're doing nothing, it makes no sense, the unions don't care, Tish is horrible. It was like one after the other. So like, just as a joke, I took like some of the points that the people were saying, and I wrote like this little poem, and I put it on social media in the morning yesterday, right? And you know, and a lot of the older guys were like they were mad about it. I looked at some of the comments, and they're like, "Oh, this is ridiculous. We used to stand on footposts. You know, I did this. Everybody did it. You did it." And I just think the thing was, one, the poem was a joke. Two, yes, you need to have some grit. You need to be out there. But does it really, really make sense at that point? Like, it just doesn't. Like, look, you know, I went to a detail. I forget what detail it was. It was freezing. It was probably New Year's. It was one of them. I get to the detail, and I get all these like 20-year major case guys, hairbags, right? Like, nobody, like, one of the person doesn't even show up on post that I have assigned to my roster, right? So I'm like, get her here right now. I want her here right now. She's a first grade detective. I was like, tell her she better get her ass here right now, you know, or it's going to be a problem. So she comes to the post, and she's like, I'm a young sergeant. And she comes, and she's like, I'm just letting you know I'm sitting in my car. I'm not doing anything. I was like, yeah. I was like, do me a favor. Call your delegate. I'm going to call the duty captain. I'm going to suspend you. So she breaks down, starts crying. I was like, slow down. I'm like, slow down. I was like, let's start over. I was like, how you doing? I'm John McCarry. I don't want to be here either. I was like, look, you got to come to post when you're assigned, right? I got to know who you are. We're going to whack it up. We're going to do an hour in, an hour out. And then when everybody comes, when we have to work, we work. And then we're going to whack it up again. Relax. It's going to be an easy night. Relax. Like, don't start off all hot and heavy with me.
Those tears worked on you, huh, John? She went from 0 to 60.
Hot and heavy with me, you know? Like, I just don't feel good. I was like, I don't feel good either.
Tears, man.
I'm like, I don't want to be here either. Like, I was like, but that's not how you approach me. I was like, what the hell is that? What do you think? You're going to bully me? You know? And, you know,
was it both eyes?
And like, look, you know, it was freezing, but like, it really was. It was bitter cold. She was sick. She didn't want to go sick for whatever reason. I was like, you should have just went sick, you know? Whatever her rationale was, it is what it is. But like, I understand us being out there in that point. There's thousands and thousands of people out on the street. We need to be there. You know, when we needed to work, we worked. To just stand there when no one's on the street, I'm not going to say it again. This is the last time I'm going to say it. It makes absolutely no sense. It's a huge waste of tax dollars. Put them in a car, have them drive around, have them do a grid. Even if it's you're going to drive around these 4 blocks and you're just going to keep doing that for the next 8 hours, that's fine. But it's more effective than just standing there. You know, last thing I had to say about it.
Yeah. I want to hear more about these tears.
Did you like my poem? What is that?
I want to hear. Did she get you with the tears? Because that went from 0 to 60 to.
No, because I kind of like I just, you know, I read people very well. So she came in like she was tough, and then I was like, all right, I was like, do me a favor, call your delegate because I'm going to suspend you. I didn't even get crazy with her back, and she just was like, I just literally started crying. I was like, relax. I was like, relax. Let's start over. I was like, I'm John McCarry. Nice to meet you. I don't want to fucking be here either. Like, let's start. Let's cool the heads prevail here. You know,
that's hilarious.
You know, like all the guys were laughing. They're like, she's a fucking drama queen. I was like, whatever. I was like, listen, I was like, I've seen it all. I've done it all, you know, but like, it's stupid. Don't start with me like that. We'll have an easy night. I was like, we'll have fun. We'll have an easy night. Don't make it hard, you know?
Yeah. Don't cry.
Yeah. I see Hunter in the chat says, mention omnipresence. Man, I haven't heard that word in a while, you know? Omnipresence. Man, they used to love that word. You know, I remember when they had the CTO program? The CTO program was the counterterrorism officer program, where they would detail guys from certain precincts. You were basically you were basically like the CTO officer within the command. It was like 4 guys in a precinct, and they would take you and detail you out in your borough at what was supposed to be counterterrorism posts, and you were supposed to be trained, and you were supposed to get all this training. You know, get the radiation pager, go to like you were supposed to go to Nevada and get all this FEMA and Homeland Security training. You never got that, right? But they would use you not as counterterrorism posts, but it was really like robbery posts. So in areas in Brooklyn North which were spiking in robberies, they'd put you on the corner, and you'd be wearing all your counterterrorism jacket because you had like a much thicker coat in the wintertime, right? And you'd be there with your jacket says counterterrorism on it, and you'd really be there because the CEO was having a robbery problems, right? So the one post was in the 8-4 by Livingston, just off of Flatbush Avenue. I remember it was really cold. And the thing about the wind over there is when the wind is blowing, it's like you're in a wind tunnel. So you're getting like hammered with the wind. At some point, we're literally told to just park the car there and stand outside. And I'm like, this is stupid. This is stupid on many levels. First, we're doing it using federal overtime. And we sign up for the whole CTO program so we could get the training and actually be counterterrorism officers. Yeah. And we're standing there. We're like, man, it's a waste of time and it's freezing. So at one point, me and my partner just get in the car. We're like, bro, screw this. It's freaking cold. I remember Captain Perez from the 8-4. I forgot his first name. At this point, I wonder if it was Kenneth Perez, but I can't confirm it. If you guys know who was the 8-4 captain around, say 2000, maybe around 2010, 2008, drop it in the chat. But I remember that guy, such a douche, he came around and he's like, guys, you got to stand outside the car for omnipresence. I'm like, it's 20 something degrees and there's nobody walking on the sidewalk. We didn't say this, but it's just stupid, and so this underscores the point I'm getting to, which is that a lot of these posts are really dumb, and I don't think they really, it's like somebody from up top said we need posts there, and nobody actually think it through, because it'd be more effective to have even have a car just patrolling that block rather than to have a stationary footpost on that specific corner, And to me, it's like, even when it's in the low 20s and the windshield is like blasting you, is it effective to have cops freezing on a post? How effective are they going to be when they see something, So, but I remember that guy was such a man. Not surprisingly, right? We see I just got a message saying it was Kenneth Perez. Not surprising that douche ends up in a EEO and played a part during the scamdemic. Okay.
Yep, I got testimony from him. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
So you see how that lack of empathy for people, it follows through all the way up there. And now what's that guy, a chief now? But again, some of these posts, they're really dumb, and I don't think it helps anyone. It doesn't help the cop that's freezing out there, and it doesn't help the public who needs a cop who's ready to go at a moment's notice. We don't need a cop that's going to be there like freezing and his mind is elsewhere right now because he's not in an optimal state. Okay. But nobody thinks that through. And by the way, somebody mentioned Juanita Holmes in there. Just so you know, he wanted to give us a CD, but I believe, if memory serves me, Janice Holmes, Juanita's sister, prevented him from doing that. So again, that's why I always say shout out to Janice Holmes, because she was a great boss when I was there in Brooklyn North.
So let's talk about, for me, I think we kind of alluded to this. I think John, Marlon, and myself, I think we all spoke about this, but I just want to go a little bit more in depth. So I think there's a difference between availability and visibility. And so before I explain what that is, and I think we all know what that is, kind of common sense, but so I always found I would do my research, and I found a lot of FBI reports. I'm looking for them right now. I haven't found them. I'll find them. What I found throughout my career is that they did studies, because in the NYPD, it's just become a common template where no one else changed it just because their predecessors did it. Their predecessors before them did it, so they continue to do it. It's almost like the reason why people don't legalize prostitution, or they do, is because the people before them did the same thing, and they just can't keep carrying the same template. So when it comes to fixed post, I have read some FBI reports, and that it's effective only for petty crimes, things like shoplifting, things like pickpocketing, things that are like small crimes right in front of your face. But real crimes, when it comes to actual serious crimes, and especially one of the serious crimes or things that we have to deal with in New York City, especially in most of the neighborhoods when you're out there, is problems with gangs and crews, right? And gangs and crews are mobile. And most of the shootings, especially me working in housing, most of the shootings that we had emanate from gangs and crews. And I say this is the stupidest thing. You have this fixed post where the cops are not mobile. They could only see a certain diameter, especially in a crowded area like the South Bronx. There's only so much you can see. You can't see what's a block ahead of you because it's busy, right? So you're not actually deterring anything. You're only displacing crime. Now, I think for small crimes, I think that availability and visibility is far different. So, yes, those cops on a fixed post, they're visible, but they're more visible to the perpetrators. I think the perpetrators actually move better because they know exactly where the cops are. They know where to move to, where not to move to, rather than availability. And I think if cops are mobile in a specific area, then now the perpetrators, the persons of interest, they have to kind of try to formulate a plan. Where are the cops now? Where are the cops going? What is the plan of the cops? The cops are constantly mobile, so there's more availability. And not only that, how effective are the cops if they're in a vehicle and they're warm? Then they could actually get out. They could actually chase a perpetrator. They could actually utilize their fingers when they get out of the car. So they could. And if it's an issue about cars, well, maybe it was an issue for Kaz Daughtry to have a car all over the place, right? Or some of these chiefs. If it's an issue about cars, put a couple of cops in the cars and say, hey, every 5 minutes, get out at a corner, just get out, show your presence, get back in the car. So I think there's a big difference between availability and visibility. And I think that these fixed posts are not effective for serious crimes. I think they're only effective for petty crimes for a short stint. But I think ultimately, in my opinion, and also based on what I've read, it's only effective to displace crime. It doesn't deter crime.
No, I agree. And you know, so we're talking about like health, safety, and welfare, right? Like that's the other thing, right? The health of the officers are endangered standing out there. They're not going to be as effective. They're not being utilized properly. It's a lot of incompetence. It's a lot of laziness to just deploy out onto these posts without really giving much thought to the weather or whatever else is happening out there on the street. So there's that. But also, like, tactically, it's horrible too, right? Because Eric just alluded to it too, right? He's talking about how not only like crews, but most perps are mobile at this point. Like, let's be honest. You're still getting street crime. You're still getting stuff emanating from people taking the train, walking, riding bikes. You're getting a lot of crime from mopeds as well, though. What could you do when you're not allowed to have a car on post? You know, you're not actually a mobile field force. You're a stationary field force. You know, that's the actual real, that should be the real title of it. And tactically, should anything happen on your post, should that one person come out when the wind chill's -5 degrees? I don't think they are. But should that happen, you literally, in some instances, you're going to have no place to take cover either. And the problem with all of this, I think, is that, you know, I think everyone could look at it and be like, yeah, it's ridiculous. It's a waste of tax money. It's not good for the health of officers. It's not good for the safety of officers. But where are the unions? Why are we talking about it? Why is the membership flipping out over it, upset about it, and rightfully so? Why are even the citizens saying things about it? And the police unions are nice and warm in Long Island, sipping brandy in Resorts World at their latest outing. You know, where are they to say a word about any of this? And I think, you know, everyone has to really think about why that is. And it's because, again, we've been telling you for 3 years The unions do not care about you. They are not your friend. They do not work for you. They literally take your money. They give it to politicians who make your job harder daily, make your job more dangerous daily. They kiss the executive asses that treat you like you're a slave, that treat you like your life is worthless, and they do absolutely nothing for you. And yet you continue to fund their political PAC to do that. So, where are the unions? They're exactly where they should be, nice and warm, drinking brandy on the shores of Long Island, out in the cold. Maybe they take a little trip down to Miami when it gets too cold. Maybe they're at my local restaurant hanging out down at the beach, playing a couple of rounds of golf. That's where they are. So, again, I talk a lot about politics on here, right? And I talk about a lot about holding your politicians accountable. And you guys see me do it, right? Like I go after the politicians that serve me, whether they're Republican or Democrat. I usually hold my Republican because I expect more out of them, feet to the fire even more. And I do it for every politician, even if it's not in a district where I own property or it's not a district that I usually go to often. I don't care. But now think about, you have a politician who works for you. You're a police officer, you're a detective, you're a sergeant, you're a lieutenant, you're a captain, you're an inspector, you're a chief. You have a politician in charge of your unit. You don't have a police officer in charge of your unit. You have people on the union board who are politicians. They are not officers like you anymore. They do not do what you do. You do not hold their feet to the fire. You do not hold them accountable. You do not put the work in for you to have a good, efficient union that's going to have your back and advocate for the members for the things you guys care about. You literally have no one to blame but yourself. I don't blame Pat Hendry for not doing anything. I don't blame Scott Monroe for not doing anything. I don't blame Lou Turco for not doing anything. I don't blame Vinny Valalong or Chris Monahan. I don't blame any of them, because you guys just, oh yeah, they're doing a good job. They're working on the contract. They're doing this. They work hard. Really? Doing what? Doing what? Because I saw them not do any work at all during the vaccine mandate. I saw the only work they did was they held the water for the mayor, and they pushed down and they told you, just take the shot and shut your mouth, kid. That's what they told you. They did absolutely nothing for you. They let your contracts be violated. They let laws be broken. Until today, they're not saying a damn word about it.
Yeah, it's funny how they're always working, but you never know what they're actually doing. Always working on something. But remember when Scott came on and he said he was doing something in Albany? I'm curious what it was that actually actually came out of that. Was it maybe the contracts? The update on the contract? But anyway, the point is that there are little things they could do that would make things a lot easier, and they always seem to be going for the home run when you could get a single and a double easily. And if you get enough of those, then that pushes things along much further than making a big swing for the home run and then missing and nothing happens for a while, or ever, to market to really change the quality of job life for cops. But yeah, this is I think it's a systematic problem with the NYPD, and I think it if you dig into the issue, it really goes further than just it's a lot deeper than us talking about like footposts, ineffective footposts, and especially in inclement or very cold weather. It's deeper than that. It's we talk about like the misallocation of resources, the lack of decision making at the lower ranks and in the precincts themselves. The lack of manpower. A lot of these ineffective footposts will be solved by having a properly staffed precinct, because who knows the precinct better than the guy who's there every day? Who knows which areas are going to pop off and which areas aren't going to be an issue, more so than the guy who knows the neighborhood, not the guy who just got shipped in and that all he's told is, okay, stand here, never mind that standing here isn't where the action is going to be. And the perps aren't stupid. Again, they're not stupid. They know if you're there right now, they're not going to do that dirt there. They're going to do it 1 block away. So this is an issue that cuts through a lot of the institutional problems of the NYPD. And it's why we always say that you can't play whack-a-mole with a lot of to me anyway. You can't play whack-a-mole with a lot of these issues. You have to really you have to really fix the NYPD, from the top down to really solve a lot of these big issues.
Well, that's why I want to piggyback off of what you said and continue this conversation about availability versus visibility. And I think what you said is exactly what I've been talking about. Predictability is the enemy of policing, right? Because who's predictable? If two police officers are put on a fixed footpost and there's a crew in a particular neighborhood, whatever area you're working in, a crew, a gang, or some type of crime's going on, well, where's the predictability? Predictability of the gangs or the crews, or predictability of the cop? Because the cop is, exactly where the cop is. Every perpetrator in that neighborhood knows there's three tours. They know who's going to be standing there. And they can tell you after 3 days who the cops are, who's standing there, what are they looking at, where are they posted at the, whether it's one of those fancy vans we would see or those stupid sky posts, or I don't even know the names anymore, right? Or just a fixed car, or if they're fixed on foot. Who's predictable, right? Right, Mom? They know the cops, and yet the perpetrators, the gangs and the crews. And for me, PSA 7 is the second largest amount of crews in the entire city. First was a 7.5, second is PSA 7 for crews in that area. So who's predictable? The cops or the perpetrators who are mobile? It's the stupidest thing. So we're talking about availability versus visibility. I also want to say this. Let's just use common sense. I don't have the data right now. But if a fixed post was so effective, then we should say, arguably, that they should be anywhere where there's a cop fixed on foot or some type of mobile field van or something. That should be the safest place in the city. And quite often, they're actually the worst places in the city, right? Let's think right now. If you guys went somewhere outside New York City, being that we're all cops, and you saw one of those fancy lights or one of those fancy mobile field vans, you would say, that's a bad spot, right? Things are going on there. But it's never a safe place because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. If it worked, it should be so safe. Wow, we don't even need this anymore. But it doesn't work. I mean, we had fixed post. I'll never forget. If anybody works at PSA 7, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We had a fixed post every day in the Mitchell houses. Must have went on for about 3 years. Every day there was a fixed post, and someone got shot 9 times right in front of 2 cops, right in front of the fixed post. And those cops couldn't do anything. They couldn't leave that post. They couldn't see everything. It was terrible. It was such a dangerous situation for those 2 cops. It was stupid. It put them in a bad spot. Useless, absolutely ineffective policing. Doesn't work.
No, yeah. I mean, you remember Jersey Street, the Jersey Street post on the 120? We were out there in the summer, and
418 Jersey.
These dudes drive by us, right? They literally look at us. We're standing there like idiots, like see them drive by us. They drive like 3 blocks down and off somebody. I'm like, we were like in shock. We were like, did someone just get shot? We run down there like we didn't even know what the hell to do, and yeah, someone got killed. Like literally, they drove right because what they know, they knew we couldn't get them. They knew we were dumb idiots just standing on that footpost. We had no car. They were familiar. Why'd they know that? Because we were there for months. Like that. So predictability, yeah, absolutely, dude. It happens often, right? Or how about I love my favorite one is you're not to leave this post except for your meal. And then that cop goes to meal, and what happens? Somebody gets robbed. Yeah. Somebody gets shot, and everybody's like, where was the post? Oh, they were on meal. And then it's a huge what to do. You got to write a 49 of why they were on meal. Then it's all right. Tomorrow, the meals are early. The meals are going to be up front or whatever. Like dumb.
Yeah, that's going to do anything.
It doesn't matter because again, it's predictable. All right. Yeah. They're not going to be here for this time. So that's when we're going to go out. And, I listen, I'm not saying if I was the police commissioner, there are times that I would use these posts, but there are definitely, I wouldn't be just blanketing New York City with these dumb posts. I wouldn't be, even if it's just a high crime area, doesn't give it's just not a good enough reason to keep somebody out on the street totally by themselves doing absolutely nothing for reason. It's completely ineffective, man. It's just, it doesn't make sense. And I get sometimes you just want to, you just want the presence, you want the omnipresence. I totally understand it. There are some things you need posts for that maybe it's not even really a high crime area. Telly has a great comment here. He said, in the early 90s, I landed in the 67th precinct. As a rookie, cops, we all had Nostrand Avenue and Church, robbery posts. Very harsh winters. After a week or two standing out there, our sergeant's operator, old timer, we're missing that, right? We're missing that now, Telly, told us to designate one guy to drive their personal car out and park it in the middle of the adjoining posts. Take turns sitting in the car and give the cop whose car you are using a couple of bucks for gas. The sergeant, of course, knew, but didn't know because he scratched us out on post. There is a lack of critical thinking. You know, there's a lack of experience. I'm not going to sit there and say that cops are dumb, but me as a young cop, I was an idiot. Like, totally dumb. Couldn't really think outside the box, was you know, like I said, we're getting scratched left and right. I'm like, I just don't want to get in trouble, you know? Like, I was pretty dumb as a rookie cop. Like, I needed some smack in the back of the head a few times, and people be like, idiot, you know? And for me to wake up, and I think a lot of us need that. I don't think that's just me. You know what I mean? I think I'm a pretty intelligent person. I think I'm pretty smart. I'm definitely street smart. I definitely have a lot of common sense. But there are some things when you're going into a profession that, you know, you need to be schooled on, you need to be taught, and you need to learn. Obviously, that was a great sergeant, right? Call those guys and tell them I'm coming here. Everybody better be on post, right? What was he doing? That's what he had as sergeant operator. Sergeant operator's good. Whatever that signal was, you knew that sergeant was coming. And, you know, you guys all made it look good. Everybody made it look good, right? And then when that sergeant needed you to work, you didn't care. You went out and you worked. And so there's a lack of critical thinking, I'll say, but it stems from a lack of experience and a lack of care and a lack of competence. And, you know, that this is why, like, you know, a lot of the stuff I'm seeing annoys me, and that doesn't annoy me for me. It doesn't even annoy me for the guys that are still on the job. Like, it just bothers me because I worry about the future of this country. I worry about the future in New York City. And I think when we're making people bosses that don't deserve to be, when we're promoting them to spots where you really need a lot of critical thinking skills, and you need a lot of care, and you need a lot of know-how, and you need to know how to move politically. And you need to, you know, at the same time, you have to have a spine and be able to lead from behind as well. You're not going to be able to do that when you didn't earn it, and you don't deserve it, and you don't understand it, and you never did it. And that's what we're missing in the New York City Police Department. I think that's what we're missing in politics. And you know, again, people get annoyed at me that I talk about both sides of the aisle, but you know, you know, maybe I've never made it clear enough. I think that the Republicans are worse than the Democrats, because I think that when you know things are wrong and you don't say anything, and you just care about your own self-worth or your own district, I think that you're much worse than those people. You know, I think you're much worse than the socialists and the communists, because you're allowing it to happen and you're not saying a word. And you sat up there and said, vote for me, I'm going to support you. And that's why I give a lot of shit to the unions too, is because I think you're worse than the anti-police politicians that you fund. I think you're much worse than them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. They're worse because at least the anti-police crowd are a lot of them are very ignorant of policing, and you know, they just don't know better. But the people that know better are the ones who are silent and, you know, fail to act and make changes. Yeah. Eric, last go around, Eric just made a mention of this. Yeah. This is for those of you who don't know, with civilians on here. This is the I think it's called the Terror Hawk or Skyhawk, and this
Skybox,
this
right?
is
Skybox.
Skybox or Skyhawk or
Something like that. Yeah.
yeah, Sky something. But this was one of the stupidest ideas the job I ever had. You know, dumb idea. If any boss out there, you know, anybody, any chief, anybody from 1PP or whatever could explain to me the usefulness of this, I'd like to know, because you know, this thing
That makes two of us, man.
was completely dumb. You needed two cops on here. You needed a cop up there and a cop sitting outside, you know, to make sure, I guess they don't tip it over or whatnot, you know, or lock you up there.
That was hilarious, right?
But what a waste of resources. There were times where we'd be on this, and then 2 blocks up there'd be a shooting, you know. And keep in mind now, I guess this had cameras on it, but half the time you get up in there and nothing's on, you know. Yeah. So again, this is one of those things where the NYPD, I guess, thought that just having it on the block would be the omnipresence to stop guys from shooting each other, you know. But yeah, we get a lot of these things that just don't make sense, and it seems to me like it's just things just passed on down, and everyone's putting a rubber stamp on it, and nobody's stopping to think, hey, this doesn't make any sense, you know. Wouldn't it be better to have like 2 guys just you know, patrolling the block, you know, have them drive around that car on the block, or which is the problem, the base problem of this again is that you need more people in the precincts, okay, and the precincts are understaffed, and there's no way to cut it. You know, we have 1 million more people than we did in the early 90s, and yet we continue to have less cops than the early 90s, or just about even with the early 90s. And that's impractical for a city that's continually growing like us. And when you have areas that have gang problems, concentrated problems in certain areas, and those precincts, you know, they can't have the adequate manpower, because then that makes the rest of the city short, you know. So it's you know, these silly ideas that we've been through in the NYPD, and everyone from the rookie who just got out of the academy who had to do that knew this was kind of stupid, you know. But you know, thank God I don't see this out there anymore, you know. So I don't know if it's gone.
That was a clown post. That's why I'm saying, like, in PSA 7, there was a particular post, and it was divided. It was on 143 Street and 3rd Avenue. Anybody knows the South Bronx, right? Patterson houses and Mott Haven. They always had a huge beef going on. So the brilliant mind of the NYPD was, let's just leave this Skywatch in the car there.
Skywatch.
Yep, for like 5 years. Yeah. Lily says PSA 7, the Bronx. Yep, PSA 7. So 143 and 3rd Avenue. It's like the entire area is housing, right? The whole it's kind of like a circle. But one side you have Patterson houses. So if you're going down 3rd Avenue, you're gonna go to leave the Bronx, which most people you should do, just leave. So one side's Patterson, the other side's Mott Haven. Huge beef. But the brilliant idea of the NYPD was, let's leave this post. It was there for like 5 years. Every day, 2 cops on 3 different posts. God forbid no one was there. And every time they moved it, what do you think happened? It was a shooting. Every time they moved it. And then you see, and the commanders would freak out. Oh my God, they would all get in trouble at ComStat. I would say, it's not because the reason why you're getting a shooting is not because you moved the post, like that post was effective. It's because it's the predictability of the enemy of policing. And I would say that these crews and gangs that are there, they're not stupid. They're not stupid. They watch every move that you make. They're watching the NYPD better than the NYPD was watching them. And that's why sometimes I felt at the upper echelon, they really didn't understand criminal behavior. These kids weren't stupid. And at first, maybe some of the kids were stupid, but the kids weren't running the crews. It was these older guys in their 40s and 50s that already did time and had the little kids out there doing the dirt for them. They were running it. It was the guys at the top. They had the little kids out there doing their dirt for them. But the reason why there was a shooting was because of the predictability. Because they were surveilling the NYPD better than the NYPD was surveilling them, because the predictability. They knew exactly where the posts were every day. They were in the same spot, not just there in housing. They knew when the cops are doing verticals, right? And they know, and the guys working, because I used to talk to them often, right? You do debriefs and you want to get to know people. And I always read different books. Like I read Gang Leader for a Day, right? And it talks about what it's like, you know, living in housing and the whole apparatus. And, basically I learned in this book and that there's a whole apparatus in housing. They have their own economic wheel in housing. They have like their own barbers. They have their own mechanics. They have their own community there. And so they're surveilling the cops better than the cops are surveilling them. So it was absolutely ridiculous. It's just the predictability. So human nature will tell you that, especially serious crimes are planned and calculated. They don't just happen spur of the moment right in front of the Skywatch and a car. It was the stupidest thing. You put the cop up there. What is the cop going to do other than sit there and be a security guard, observe, report, and repeat? And then, first of all, it's such a voluminous metropolis. If something happens and the guy takes off in 2 seconds, that Skywatch, the cop in that box is useless. The cop at the bottom the whole time just watching to make sure the thing doesn't fall down. It was absolutely, talk about misusing resources. And then no one had the balls. Here we talk about balls. No one had the balls. Every commander did the same thing. You get a commander in for a year, 2 years, then you get another one. And they all did the same thing because they were afraid of the borough. And the people at the borough were afraid of the people at the top at Comstat. And no one changed anything. It was completely useless. And then you have to have a sergeant going 3 or 4 times on each tour, on 3 tours, to make sure that these people are in this spot that's completely useless. This is where tax dollars are going. Very sad, not effective policing. I read numerous FBI reports that these 72-hour fixed posts are useless. They're good for maybe the first couple hours, just a little blitz, maybe 2-3 hours, and that's it. After that, it's so predictable. And that's why, John, in the 120, we had all those incidents, right? When we were in impact, if we left, there's a shooting because of the calculability and the predictability, not because it was effective. All these commanders like, oh my God, you left to use the bathroom. And they were blaming on the cops. No, it's your plan. It should be about crime strategy. Crime strategy and plans is what deters crimes. Post, do not. I think the criminal element actually does better surveillance on the NYPD than they do on them with these fixed posts.
Yeah, so Finest says worse was Lieutenant Grogan in Lower Manhattan when he went to scratch the CRV post. So CRV was this detail where you would all the commands, you would get a car and you'd go to wherever. They mainly was in Manhattan, and then you'd have posts throughout all the city. So I never did it as a cop. I was in crime. I was in field intelligence, so I never actually did it as a cop. But I did it one time as a sergeant, and I encountered Lieutenant Grogan. Let me tell you, biggest dick I ever met on the job. I was like, this guy's a scumbag, because you give me an assignment, you're not going to catch me drinking coffee. I was a believer, man. I was never that way. I never expected everyone to do what I did, but I did my duty. Like I did so many days I didn't take meal. I regret the way I was now, but that's just how I was. Like I'm still like that. I just I'm just very conscientious. You give me an assignment, I'm doing it. So I get to CRV. They give me my posts. I have posts all the way from the Bull, all the way up to like I think in the 60s. So I have posts assigned the whole way. So they give you a paper, tells you like a little bit about, each post, how it has to be. And as a supervisor, you had to go by and ensure twice that your guys were out there. So I have my posts. I get up to, now I had already visited everybody twice. All my guys were great. I had all these guys from across the city, but I really did. I had great guys that night. They were really good. And I think I had them one in, one out, and it was fine. It wasn't a big deal. I don't think they cared about it. Like, it was one in, one out. But it was a nice night. It was a beautiful night. I go to 42nd Street, and Grogan comes up with this inspector, heavy-set guy. The inspector was a nice guy. Grogan was a dick. So I don't know this guy, but as soon as he walks up, the cop's like, oh, shit. Because I guess they were doing it for overtime, so they knew him. And he walks up, and he gets right in my face, like to the point where like I square off, I'm like, and he's like, where was this post? Blah, 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 blah. And so he's asking me about the post by the Bull, where the car should be positioned. So I had read it earlier in the night, so I knew it, and I had been to the post twice. So I said, it's got to be positioned here. Okay. He's like, all right. And then he mentions another post on a different avenue that's not mine. He's like, why is your girl out on the cell phone? Are you not a sergeant? You don't know what you're doing? Blah, 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 blah. I was like, Lou, just not to cut you off. I said, but that's not my post. I don't have that post. He's like, yes, you do. I was like, no, I don't. You just asked me my posts. I just told you my posts. That's not on my route, you know? And he goes, I'm just letting you know, I wrote 150 CDs this year. I was like, congratulations, you know? And then the inspector steps in. He goes, oh, he knows what he's doing. That's not his post. His guys are out there. We visited all of them. Leave it alone. And he walked away. And I'm like, was that necessary? Like this guy made a career off of just hurting cops for no reason.
Were you 151?
What was it?
Were you 151?
No, he didn't give me a CD. The inspector cut it off. The guy was a nice guy. He was like the counterterrorism inspector or whatever. He was a nice guy. I don't remember his name. He cut him off. He stopped it. Like it was getting like, I was like, all right, I guess I'm getting a CD right now for nothing. You know what I mean? But like it just was what it was. But that guy was a dick. But somebody else had made a comment like, you know, people should be sitting in cars. So here's my problem with cars, right? And I never like cars. I'm super paranoid, especially if you put me in a dumb blue car with big lights on top of it, where everybody sees you. You know, if you can't really ever see everybody, right? And you don't know what everybody's thinking. And I'll be honest, I'd rather have guys standing outside freezing their ass off than sitting in the car. And the reason is because tactically, it's really dangerous for you guys. And it's human nature, man. Like, you know, it's not good to be paranoid the way I am. It's not good for you mentally. It's just not. But but if you're not paranoid like that and you're sitting in the car, and even if you are paranoid like that and you're sitting in the car, you're at a severe disadvantage tactically, and you're not going to see what's going to come at you if, God forbid, something's going to come at you. You don't know that the post you're sitting at, there's a guy wanted for murder upstairs. You don't know that the post you're sitting at, you know, it's whatever. Somebody thinks you're there for them. They have an open warrant. They're wanted by the squad. The squad called them earlier that day. You have no idea, you know? So when now you're in a car, you're cold, you put the heat on, you got the windows up. And first of all, you should never be driving in a police car with your windows up. They should always be cracked. I don't care if your feet get cold, if your hands get cold, you should be able to hear what's going on outside. You know, your window should always be cracked. But it's going to take you out of it. It's going to take you out of the situation and the scenario you're in. I mean, you know, when I think about guys sitting, if I'm a supervisor and cops are like, oh, we're just going to sit in the car together. Absolutely not. One in, one out. You know, and you know, the reason for that, I mean, look what happened to Lou and Ramos, right? Sitting in that car. If there was one in, one out, I think, you know, the perp would have been met with some resistance. You know, you look at Gerald Carter, you look at Eddie Burns, same thing, right? Sitting in a car. It's really bad. I'd rather you out freezing your ass off than both of you in the car. I just think that I as a supervisor, as anything, I would never want to see you both in the car, just because I think you're out of it. You're out of the game. And I always say it, you're in uniform, you're in that car. Yeah. What are the chances? Oh, you never know. You never know. Look, for those of you that grew up in New York City, or you just been city cops and you've been cops for over a few years, you know that shit happens, that the unexpected is going to happen when you least expect it, you know? And so, you know, I would be totally against, you know, saying, oh yeah, have them both sit in cars. And even if I was the union, I'd push back on that. Like, no. They're not sitting in the cars.
Well, I would rather them be in the car and mobile rather than stationary in the car.
Me too.
And 3 weeks before Lou and Ramos died, I was on that same corner doing the same counterterrorism BS post, you know. And again, they had a condition in that area, in that precinct. But yeah, the Lou and Ramos again is one of those incidents that I've never looked at being in a vehicle the same way. You know, in the old days, you park up and, you know, you eat lunch in your car. And now I would never do that. You know, you got to keep moving. And if you're going to park up, you do it in a precinct lot. You do it somewhere where you can, you know, monitor your all sides of the vehicle, and you don't have to worry about somebody coming up and taking a shot at you. But again, it's the ineffectiveness of these posts. You know, I think we I think we covered it well, but I think again that these posts should be, the exact problem with the NYPD, the exact problems we should get to the heart of, rather than look to piecemeal it with things like these posts, because ultimately I just don't think they solve the problems, and are really effective.
No, yeah, absolutely. So, so yeah, I think that's it. I don't know where Eric went. I guess something happened. He had to jump off for a minute. But yeah, I guess I guess that's it, right? I just think it's completely ineffective. This mobile field force, or what it really is stationary field force, and it's a bad deployment. It's a bad, incompetent deployment. And I think what happens in the police department, happens in any organization, is that you have a tendency to just follow through doing what was done before you got there. And I think, what needs to happen is people really need to think outside the box. And I agree with you. I say make mobile field force mobile. Maybe in the summertime, maybe as the weather warms and you have problems and you do need to displace that crime, then you do it. You break it up for whatever reason. You need to quell down that area for the time. Then maybe you bring it back in certain forms. But for the majority of that force should be mobile. So make mobile field force mobile again. That's we don't need cops looking like this, right? Like that's just big. Is this from The Shining mall? I know you made this photo. Is that the end of The Shining?
Yeah. I immediately thought of it. I'm like, oh yeah. Let me make him look like a cop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Eric said I'll be right back. All right, so let's end that segment. Let's move over to what came out all over the social media. So I got this picture sent to me, and I instantly was like, oh my goodness. So let's start from right to left. You have Jeff Bezos, you got Bill Gates, you got Bill Clinton, you got Jeffrey Epstein, you got Ghislaine Maxwell. And then I don't know who this woman is. I have no idea who it is. But when I see this young boy, I'm like, who the hell is that? And I'm like, oh my God, it's the mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani. And this dump comes right after we learn that there were ties in the last set of Epstein files that Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch's cousin, Steve Tisch, owner of the Giants, had these relations with Jeffrey Epstein and supposedly had conversations with him about girls and asking whether they were working girls or not. What'd you think about young Zohran Mamdani?
Well, so we got I got pushback online about whether the photo is authentic, whether it's AI, and interestingly enough, the original post has been is down for some reason. But let me tell you, there's a lot of smoke here. There's a lot of smoke. And yes, it seems to be that the New York City political class are just one incestuous bunch of ultra elites, that all, they all know each other. They all conduct business with each other. They all go to their parties. They all hang out together, and they all think alike too. So regardless of the authenticity of the picture, I can tell you, and we'll get into it, that for a fact, okay, all right, and sure, it's circumstantial, but there is a lot of smoke, to this, and there's a lot of connections between Zohan and these elites. And Zohan, in particular, Zohan's parents and these elites. Okay, they all flow in the same incestuous network.
Yeah. I mean, one of my friends was laughing. So, and one thing, the post that was sent to me that had this photo, they literally asked AI, "Is this AI generated or is this legit?" And it came back 99% that that's probably legit. It looks totally legit. I didn't go through the Epstein files. Like I said, I'm not really big into that stuff. I care more about like municipal politics and stuff like that. I'm not going to deep dive into thousands and thousands of pages. But I mean, it seems legit to me, and the fact that he hasn't commented on it, tells me
Very
that there's
fascinating.
definitely something there. The thing that I wonder about is like, you know, is the news ever going to ask Jessica Tish what she thinks about this? Is the news going to ask Zohran Mondani what they think about this? And if they don't,
Oh,
that tells you everything you need to know about the mainstream legacy media, right? So, because I think it's important, and I don't think it's important because I think that they're part of Jeffrey Epstein's network. They're obviously a lot younger than the those time periods, right? You see Zohran as a young boy there. His mom connected to, she's a Hollywood elite, so knowing these people is not like the craziest thing in the world, right? Any of you could be pictured with anyone and not even know it, or think someone's a good person and find out later down the road that they're really a deviant weirdo, and you took a picture with them one time at a party because the president of the United States was there and you thought it was cool, and you're next to Bill Gates, and so I don't think it's like, oh my God, you're the worst person in the world because you were pictured with Jeffrey Epstein, but it's definitely something that should be explored. It's definitely a question, because the question is, well, like, what are your mom's relations to him? What do you think about your cousin's relations to him? Do you know him? Have you ever, besides the time when you're young, like when was the last time you've seen him? Have you ever been to Epstein Island? I mean, I think these are normal questions. This is national news. And if the media shies away with it, it tells you exactly everything you need to know, that you live inside of the Overton window, the allowed Overton window that the elites and the media want you to have. And you're not allowed to ask those questions or know those answers, because where there's smoke, a lot of times there's fire.
Yeah. So, like I said, there's a lot of smoke to this. Okay, the first point is that the lady that we see in the picture, the Indian lady, is Zohan's mother. Her name is Miran Nair, and she had a movie in 2008 called Amelia, which was about Amelia Earhart. Now, the thing about this is the movie was financed by a guy named Ted Waite, and this is Ted in the picture here next to Ghislaine. Now, the thing is, they had a relationship from 2003 up until 2011, when the first arrest came for Epstein. And around the time and also around this time, Ted was being blackmailed because of his connections to Epstein and Ghislaine and all that. So they broke up around 2011. But Ted is also a pilot, right? And Ghislaine has a helicopter pilot's license. And they're both aviation aficionados, okay? And in particular, Ghislaine has a obsession with Amelia Earhart, okay? And she was the impetus for Ted funding the movie, because and by the way, she and Ted also conducted aviation expeditions trying to find the wreckage of Amelia's plane in the Pacific. I believe it's Pacific. But yeah, so she pushed him to finance that movie because he's a tech billionaire who used to I think he was the founder of Gateway Computers. So he really had no connection to the movie industry. And this was his first and only production in Hollywood, and it ended up bombing. So he no longer produced anything. On this movie, he got an executive producer credit just because he helped fund it. But the point we're getting here is that, and again, this is Ghislaine's interview with Todd Blanche, Deputy Attorney General, and in that she states the nature of her relationship with Ted Waite, and she revealed a lot of this. But anyway, the point we're getting to here is that there are connections between all these people, all these elites, and they all know each other, and regardless of what, it's just I think the biggest problem is that they're all in a bubble, and they all think the same, they do the same things, they hang out with each other, and that incestuous relationship it doesn't help the city, because this is how you get to this is how you get to those cronyist connections throughout city government, okay, and throughout the U.S. government in general, because everyone knows everyone, and everyone's making a deal with everyone, and there's no outside ideas coming in. There's no there's no there's no looking at what they've done and thinking, maybe we should slow down, maybe this is wrong, because they all think the same. And again, this is an example of the three-card Mamdani that we talk about, right? Because Andrew Cuomo is also on Epstein's contact list, okay? And we know Eric Adams is connected to Epstein because his buddy Brock Pierce is connected to Epstein. So it's like, as we said when we were in election season, it doesn't matter which of the three Democrats you voted for, you're getting the same policies. Okay, it's the three-card Mamdani. Regardless of which Democrat you vote for, you're getting the same incestuous network of degenerate elites that they're all there together in the swamp. You're getting the swamp. Okay, so.
All right, it's good to be back. I just went on a coughing fit for like 10 minutes, so it hit me hard. Anyway, so I think Marlon. By the way, someone said here you should be back at Intel. I absolutely second that. Marlon is great at connecting the dots. There's no doubt about it. And just here's another example of why the NYPD is where it's at right now. It's been emasculated. Someone like Marlon, who has a passion for Intel and he's still doing it, he should be there right now. Chronicle said, "Oh my God, Eric, pineapple juice, get rid of that cough." Yeah, it's been killing me. I just went on a fit for like 10 minutes. I couldn't stop. But anyway, I think that when we talk about Epstein, I think it's become, to me at least, I think it's become like a litmus test. When we see people and pictures with Epstein, what questions come to mind? At least for me, it's like, well, how do they handle power? How do they handle accountability? Oh, and they are an elite, right? And if they're an elite, it's usually, if you have a connection to Epstein, you're an elite. And what also comes to mind, and it should come to mind for everybody's victims. The word victim. When you think of Epstein, the word victim should come to mind as well. What victims were involved in this picture, if any? Those are questions that should come to mind if there are pictures with Epstein, and that's the first thing that should come to mind. So to me, I think it's become a complete litmus test. We could say what type of power someone has, what's their accountability, are there potential victims, surrounded by them? Could it be? I mean, we don't know. But to me, any association with Epstein, those questions should arise. What do you think, John?
I think, it's disgraceful, one, that you had this girl in jail, Ghislaine Maxwell, and she's convicted of sex trafficking minors. And yet we don't know. Oh, and Jeffrey Epstein, right? But we don't know who the clients are. So you're sex trafficking minors to who? Who was she? And it's taken years and years to come out. And again, and people like, you get one take from the right why it is. And, it's because whatever the reasoning is, right? Whatever reasoning on the right or left they give, it's like the dumbest thing. And I'm like, I was like, you know why the files have came out? You know why both the Republicans and the Democrats overwhelmingly don't want those files to come out? Because either them or their rich donors, the elite, are named in there, and they told them they're not going to put it out, so they don't want to put it out. It's that simple, and so there is a class of elites, and if you think any of them are Republican and Democrat, you're a moron. You know what they're called? Friends. We're the working class idiots that think that there's a difference when you get to the top. They're all going to the same social meetings. They're all intermarrying their children. They're all in business together, in bed together. They're all in government together. I think it's absolutely disgraceful what happened. I think, it's one of the biggest failures, I think, of the Trump administration is that there's still no justice for any of it, for any of the victims. We've had the FBI director, Kash Patel, literally under testimony say that there are no victims when that's a falsehood. He literally lied under oath, like his good friend Kaz Daughtry. And his other friend, John Shell, like literally had no problem lying. And we've all seen evidence of people claiming to be victims. And and I remember the time with even Pam Bondi, we're not gonna release the names of the victims. But if you really listen, most of the victims have no problem being named publicly. They just want justice. And we watch a uniparty push back at it. And I think that's the big problem for me. And I think it's absolutely disgusting. And I think it shows that, there is a network of elites there. There is a so-called deep state. And we're a bunch of morons. And everybody, regardless if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or whatever, everybody should want to get to the bottom of it. And everybody that, Zohran Mamdani, I don't know if you guys remember on the campaign trail, he actually made a comment about Cuomo being in the Epstein files. I don't know if you guys remember that. He did a little video about Cuomo being in the Epstein files. I don't know where it is. I didn't pull it up. But now, that same level of scrutiny should fall towards him.
He should have done a rap song.
Yeah, that was another failure on their part. But I mean, to be honest, is anybody shocked by it? I'm not. I wasn't shocked when these photos came out. I was like, oh yeah, hey, there you go. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So you're all connected somehow to how it is, and you all should answer for it, and you all should have to get your feet put to the fire and answer these questions publicly. And right now, what it looks like is we have a sitting mayor, and a sitting police commissioner who all have ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And I haven't heard one question from anybody in the media about it, and there needs to be.
Yeah. And so again, like I mentioned, this is Cuomo on the Epstein. It's blurred out because I don't want to post the addresses, but I'll post the address where you can actually go see it for yourself. There's Andrew Cuomo on there. And by the way, Tish, again, she has 4 family members that are in his black book. Okay. This is Tish and Meryl and Jimmy, I believe, are her parents. Ann and Andrew are his uncle, and Andrew ran the police foundation. And there is her cousin David Tish. And the news just leaked that her other cousin Steve Tish was in contact with Epstein. Apparently, Epstein scouted women for him. Okay, allegedly. All right. So again, they're all connected to Epstein, and it's bad because again, it's the same people, the same thoughts, the same worldview of things. Okay, this is how you get Mamdani coming in, and he still doesn't want to bring us back. He still doesn't want to get over the scamdemic mandate, okay, and bring those workers back because they all share the same worldview. Whether it's Eric Adams, Andrew Cuomo, or Zohran Mamdani, they have the same elitist worldview, and they still have the same opinion of us peasants, okay, and that they still have the opinion of how to run government, that government should be more of a technocracy and run by a small minority of people rather than to account for your voice, the common man. And I mentioned before that Zohan's dad is connected to. There are connections there too, because Zohan's father, by the way, he came over to America on something called the Kennedy Airlift, which was tied to the CIA, by the way. The founders are tied to the CIA. And now his father worked for Columbia University, and there's a lot of connections to Columbia University and Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, so again, they all float in the same circles. And if you want to have a New York City and an America that makes where government makes policies for the regular people again, networks like this need to be scrutinized, and we need to ask questions of the people who are involved in it. Okay, otherwise you're getting the same policy, you're getting the same worldview of things, and nothing will change. Things will just continue getting worse for the people on the street, whereas these people, profit, and their network only gets stronger. And again, this is bad for the long-term health of America and New York City, because look how many of the young people feel a sense of hopelessness in their future right now. And it's because they look at how government and how everything is run by these elites, and they feel they don't have any power on their own lives. And if they don't feel they have power in their own lives and agency over their own lives, they're eventually going to back out of the economy and not contribute, and not contribute to society, and not help to push us along when we need it to keep going along to compete with other countries like China. So
You're absolutely right. Again, whoever said here that you should still be in Intel, I second that. If I was on the job, and it's only a shame that I didn't know you, Marlon, while I was on the job. We all found, John and I knew each other throughout our careers, worked together a short time. But if I was in special ops right now, no doubt about it, I'd have you do my intelligence work. And I think that's a key. That's a key to leadership. Also, is knowing, right, to be a good leader. What in any facet, I always thought you don't have to be the smartest guy in the room, the strongest guy in the room, but you damn well have to know to find the best resources and always find people around you that are smarter than you. I think John, myself, Marlon, we're all intelligent people. We all have different wheelhouses, but intelligence was not, as far as like digging into stuff like that, wasn't my wheelhouse. I enjoy tactics, things like that. So shout out to you, brother. Super impressive. And it's only a shame that the NYPD can't use your intelligent mind anymore. But it's their loss, not yours.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to put you on the spot too much. I don't want to embarrass you, but really, it's truly impressive. But again, I think talking about Zohran Mamdani, things like that. And we talk about. I think John made a great point. We talk about Epstein. We know it's an outright lie for people to say there's no client list, right? We know there's victims. Well, who are these clients? And we know that if you're an elite, most of the elites know each other, right? Because what is the percentage of the nation that actually makes Jessica Tisch money, that makes the money that Epstein has, Zohran Mamdani? So they all know each other. I think it's probably maybe less than 1% of the entire nation makes that kind of money, if it's at 0.5%. So this is a small circle of people, and they all know each other. That's why I think at this point, I don't think I'm off base to say that it's kind of a litmus test. You've seen pictures with someone in Epstein. You have to say, what type of power do they have in this country? And I don't even mean at in their small circle. What type of power do they have in this country? How do we hold them accountable? Are there any victims involved? I think it's a litmus test. I really do.
yeah, and you got to think, how manufactured is their backstory, and how likely are you to actually get the policies that they told you they were going to bring on a campaign trail when they get into the seat of government? I mean, where's our free buses already? I'm still waiting on those free buses. Where's the rent freeze?
Too. They were going to be fast too.
Yeah.
Fast and free.
Keep waiting. You wait for that bus. You'll be on a fixed post with one of these cops going, "Ooh, what's going on here?"
Yeah.
I don't see it. Neither do you.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's just crazy, All right. I guess that's enough on the Epstein. Let's get on to these 2 city council bills, and then I think we could start to wrap up. Just Detective Silva, he says, John, where is the disconnect the executives are having with what should be done compared to what they're doing? So just to go back on the mobile field force, I don't really think there are any executives in the New York City Police Department any longer. It's severely micromanaged from the top down. It's been throughout the entire Eric Adams administration, and it's just not a good system because utter compliance is necessary for you to even be able to maintain your position as an executive. So you essentially really have no authority. And it's, people are afraid to make decisions because when they don't make the decision that aligns with what's coming down and the micromanagement from the top, they're going to get their heads chopped off, And so it's just a very, very bad system right now. So that's what ultimately needs to change. So, what we talked a little bit about last week, what's coming out of New York City Council. So I'll be dropping these throughout the next couple of months, and I'm sure we'll be talking about a lot of it. Got a lot of pushback on how I worded this, and I stand by every single sentence and word that I put on my posts about this. So I'll just tell you what this is. This is a local law. This was introduced by Kevin Riley, Althea Stevens. You may know Althea. We featured her on the show numerous times. She's the one who wants to abolish the gang database, right? And Natasha Williams. So this is a local law to amend the New York City Charter in relation to the creation of a 3-digit gun violence intervention hotline, right? What's a 3-digit gun intervention hotline, right? Well, it's not labeled out here, right? They don't tell us what it is, but a 3-digit hotline that you call when there's a threat of gun violence, someone is shot, someone is about to be shot, someone's carrying a firearm, someone's menacing someone with a firearm. It's called 911 currently. So this is what I wrote. And again, I stand by it. I said, New York City Council seeks to replace 911. The New York City Council wants to create a 3-digit gun violence intervention hotline. Essentially, they want someone to call this 3-digit hotline so New York City can dispatch an unaccountable, untrained, non-transparent violence interrupter to a scene where gun violence is being threatened. I assume threatened because it could be when someone's shot too, because it doesn't really tell us what it is about, right? That's not really there. It's not labeled out because, again, Kevin Riley, Althea Stevens, and Natasha Williams. Natasha is the one that we spoke about where she doesn't want you to make memes of politicians. They're highly incompetent individuals. Not as incompetent as the people that elected them, but they're highly incompetent, and they're not good at essentially describing it, right? What exactly they want to do. So I'm left to think that it's only when gun violence is being threatened, right? Because obviously if somebody's shot, the police department's going to have to respond, right? So I said, this is a public safety grift to funnel taxpayer funds to political allies and friends rather than an evidence-based public safety strategy. The hotline, like New York City's entire $192 million experiment known as the Crisis Management System, CMS, will keep no data, be unaccountable to taxpayers, and not cooperate at all with the NYPD. Again, we don't know how these violence interrupters are picked, are paid, their schedules, the training they receive, nor if any data is being collected to prove this use of taxpayer funds is worth it. But that is not stopping New York City Council from seeking to divert more funds to more not so well thought out public safety experiments that will do absolutely nothing to alleviate the workload of the NYPD or provide public safety to New York City. So that's what's coming out. And yeah, I don't know, man. What do you guys think about this new 3-digit gun violence intervention hotline?
Yeah, I think, I made a nice graphic about it because we're going to be doing a lot of talking about all the BS coming from City Council. Okay. And again, it's ridiculous, This is why I said on Friday, these guys should have 2 weeks, of work a year, 2 weeks. And then you go back to your regular job, because if you get more than 2 weeks, you're more than likely to create some stupid law that just hurts the city even more and just takes away from your rights as a citizen. It's like the longer they're there, the more they're thinking of ways to justify their existence, and that's bad. We need them to have regular jobs. Go back to your regular job in your regular life, so you don't have to you're not distanced from the plebs on the street, and you have to encounter the plebs on the street when you pass stupid laws, and you go back to the streets and the plebs are feeling it, and they'll be able to tell you to your face you just did something stupid. But we're going to be doing a lot of talking about this, and I'm curious to see just how dumb these laws are going to get in the face of the fiscal situation with the city. Because, as I said before, I think as that situation gets worse, that the pool of money for them to make stupid laws for, or to give to their associates in the NGOs and the community organizations, that pool of money is going to shrink. So let's see how much more pandering and nonsense comes out of them as that pool of money shrinks.
Marlon, I was going to say ditto. You just said it well. I just say to myself, look at the stupidity that goes on in city council. Has anyone there ever actually had a real job? Used to say something, the Marine Corps, most people know what it is. It's the acronym KISS, keep it simple, stupid. But they just put it to the point where they keep everything, they try to overthink things and make it far more stupid than it already is. This is absolutely ridiculous. This is just plain dumb. This is trash. You already have 911. I almost wonder, do they just sit around and play who could spend the most time? Let's come up with the dumbest bill possible. Let's come up with a bill so we stop Maul and Bethel from making funny memes. Let's come up with a bill. You exactly, John. You have 911, 311, 411. Like, how many 3-digit numbers do you need? What's next? You're gonna have 666. What does this actually work to deter? How about we stop saying deter guns? How about we just deter crime? Because as far as I know, what happened to the Second Amendment? Like guns, there are good people out there that should be allowed to carry firearms. Let's not talk about deterring guns. How about we just deter crime? It doesn't have to be gun violence or because there are, I don't know if city council knows this, but there are people that commit robberies with knives. I've seen guys in the Bronx walk around with little axes, those little hatches, those little axes, you name it. Glass bottles. It's not just guns. These are such stupid people. And must be I think this one is the one by Lincoln Wrestler, right? This is a Lincoln Wrestler proposal. What a dummy. Again, it's like they overthink things. Have these people had real jobs? I know they have educations, but sometimes it's like they're so smart that they're dumb. Let's try to overthink this. Yeah, we'll come up with another number. So I mean, you have like 85 passwords in your life, and then you got to remember. Oh wait, it might be gun violence. No, it's not 911. That's not an emergency. Let's call 666. Yeah, what a dummy. Can that guy get a haircut, please?
So I got a call over the week, not a call. I got a message over the weekend, and the person was like responding to about this bill, and they basically said that on Staten Island there's only one violence interventor, and what they do is they show up. And now I'm looking for the data for this, and I asked them to send me the data to verify this. But what they said is that anytime there's a shooting on Staten Island, if it was so effective, obviously you'd have more, but you don't. And because, again, there's no data. You read Brad Lander's report. We explored it here, where he said it was a success, said it brought down shootings, but at the same time said there's no data to prove any of this. So I'm like, it was at the craziest thing I ever read in my life coming out of the New York City Comptroller's office. But what this person said to me is that every time there's a shooting on Staten Island, the violence interventor shows up after the fact and receives a stipend of $1,500 every time they respond. I mean, what is this doing for public safety? Again, who gets this job? It looks like a grift to me. It looks like graft. It looks like political allies you're awarding. And what do we see time in and time out from the SIM system? We see the people that are supposedly fighting against violence and fighting against all of this stuff involved in dealing drugs and involved in trafficking guns and the use of crimes. So it doesn't seem completely effective at all. And now we're talking about a 24/7 hotline where we need a staff of people that will be dispatched 24/7 to receive their $1,500. So what it looks like to me is just more crumbs down the line. I am highly looking forward to this year's Public Safety Committee as it meets. We have an awesome city councilwoman, Joanne Ariola, who's on the board, who was just reelected. And I cannot wait to testify at the Public Safety Committee going forward, because I'm going to be speaking about a lot of this nonsense. I'm going to be asking a lot of questions about it. And there's going to be a few other council people that are going to ask a lot of the questions that I want asked and I want answered, that I'm sure. And because it's not because of me, it's because it's our money going there, and it makes absolutely no sense. And we're going to expose just how incompetent these people are. So, so what dumb law is city council pushing today? Let's explore just one more of those, Marlon. So if you could pull that down. I got it.
Yeah, sorry.
I got it.
Yeah.
So here's one more law. Well, this will be all of what dumb they're diverting today. So this is a local law to amend the Administrative Code of New York in relation to the establishment of a process to divert young people to community-based organizations in lieu of arrest. So again, a lot of people had a lot of issues about what I wrote about this, but they still couldn't answer any of my questions. So again, it says absolutely nothing here. So this is what I wrote. I said, New York City Council seeks to abolish arrests. New York City Council has just introduced a bill that would create a law where young people will be diverted to community-based organizations in lieu of arrest. Please note, they did not define who is considered young. Who's a young person? I'm 45. Am I young? Maybe, right? We don't know. What crimes will be covered? So are we talking about people that rape people, murder people? We don't know. Just instead of you getting arrested, you go to a community-based organization. They don't know. They don't list out the crimes. Nor which community-based organizations those who are subject to arrest will be diverted to. So we're talking about anyone that's arrested or anyone you deem young, what crimes specifically, and what community-based organizations, evidence-based, which ones. So I said the four sponsors of this bill, Crystal Hudson, Althea Stevens again, Camila Hanks out of Staten Island, and Mercedes Narcisse, appear to be as incompetent as the bill they are attempting to pass, but not as incompetent as the people who keep voting them in. So what do you guys think? Does this sound like a great idea, or is this just going to lead to more youth crime? This is and again, just for you guys, so you're aware, in New York City, youth violence, while you're being told crime is down, while you're being told shootings are down, youth violence is skyrocketing. It's at levels we've never seen. And what they want to do, instead of the police having the ability to arrest them, instead of the courts having the ability to give them penalties, sometimes even put them away if need be, because they are public safety threats, they want them to just go to these community-based organizations where you're giving hundreds of millions of dollars to. And again, we have no data to prove if they are effective or not.
So let me get this straight, right? If a young person is involved in a gang-related incident, we're going to divert them to a community-based organization, right? Maybe like the violence interrupter, right? So now that young person who's involved in a gang incident is now going to be maybe they'll join the violence interrupter program. So now when me as a citizen calls the cops because I just saw, I just saw a group of guys with a gun, around the corner, or there's that house across the street, it's a gang location. I'm seeing guys gather up and they're playing with guns. So now me as a citizen is gonna get the violence interrupter to respond to my house because of that. This whole thing is like so ridiculous, And something else to consider, right? Just to go back on the violence interrupter program again, but think of it for a second. These guys don't have uniforms. They're gonna show up to your house wearing a hoodie, maybe a hat. Maybe they're gonna have like that. They don't have any they don't have a shaving standard. They don't have they don't have any grooming standards of a police department. So which I'm not sure we have any either. But they're gonna show up looking like that, and you're gonna be like, "Who are you? Who are you?" So this entire thing is like so not. It's like nobody thought this out. Nobody's really thinking this out and thinking of the potential ramifications of it. Is that's a civilian who calls that 3-digit number now. Is that person, what's stopping the information from being ratted out to the streets now?
Nothing.
I mean, like really, the house across the street is a gang location, and now I'm speaking to the violence interrupter who last week was part of them, and
Who robbed
what's
me
stopping
last week.
my name from
Yeah. Come on, you call 777 or 666, you're all good. As long as you know the 3 numbers, you're good. What's that 666? No, 666 was for guns. Hold on, you violence. Let me get out my pad. That's 777. 777's for kids. Yeah, let me call that one.
Yeah,
bunch of dummies.
Yeah, bro. This thing is like it's like so dumb. It's like people who, I mean, go talk to the precinct commander before you push these laws, city council. By the way, I've been to my city council meetings a couple times. I have to start going back again, But why doesn't the city council member show up to these meetings? It should be mandatory that you show up to these meetings. What do you do all day? What do you do all day?
Best part-time job in the world, New York City Council.
Seriously.
And then all you got to do is I think they probably wrote this bill on crayons. Like they probably these 2 bills, like when you read them and you see how little effort they put into them, like they didn't even explain anything. Like such little effort was done to put these bills. You're like, I could have went to a 3rd grade class. They would have gave me a better piece of legislation than this. Like this is the dumbest kids in the 3rd grade class that gave you this legislation. Well, they didn't even do the who, what, where, when, why. Like it's not even there. And this is who's running the city.
John, they're young. We can't discriminate. They're young people, so we can't discriminate. We can't put gender and a number on it. You know what's funny to me? Like, I don't know. I've seen all these different. You guys, we were on the job. We said all these diversion programs. I never seen any of them work. What was that one diversion program? Maybe it was just in the Bronx, where someone got locked up, and they didn't get a desk appearance ticket. They got a diversion program, and it was supposed to go away. I remember one time some perp got locked up. There was some diversion program, and they tried to talk to him about the program. He laughed at it. He was like, he walked out. I think he'd rather go to court. Like he didn't even care. It was. I saw all these diversion programs. None of them worked. So now here's what I think: if you really care, city council, and you want to have a diversion program, why don't you have a program before the violence happens? To me, once the violence happens, once the kid is out there committing crimes with guns and knives, I think we're far past diversion. The violence has already happened. You should have the diversion program before the violence happens. Exactly what Marlon said. Go to these community council meetings. Go to meetings. Go to some of these events. Get to know the kids. Talk to the kids. Find out what they're doing in the streets. Get them in programs. Work with them. But to have a diversion program after the violence is committed, I think we're far too late. In my opinion, the diversion program has to be before. But now that they committed a crime, what are we going to divert? So they shot at someone. Let's have a diversion program. Hey, buddy, you're a little late to the party. That makes no sense. Johnny Smiley, it's right? Like, I don't get it. Stupid.
It's crazy, bro. Like this is reality. Special Hagen says, I think their intentions are good, but there's no older, competent politicians to guide them. They're too arrogant to admit they don't know what they're doing. I'm going to really disagree with you here. I'm going to really, 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 really disagree with you. I don't think their intentions are good. I don't think they even know what they're talking about. In order for your intentions to be good, they have to be informed, right? When you put a thought out there into the world that you're unwilling to defend, it's not a good intention. It's like you said, they're arrogant, and that's
well
really
said,
what it is. It's arrogance. You're putting these not well thought out things into the world and trying to create law that makes absolutely no sense. That's going to make things worse for all the people that you claim to care about and claim to serve. And yet you're not willing to defend it. You're not willing to answer questions about it. And what are they doing for these laws? Oh, we showed you last week what they're doing. They're saying Marlon and John and Eric better not be making memes on social media or we're going to lock them up. You know, like this is like I don't think their intentions are good. I think their intentions are highly misplaced. They're highly incompetent, and they're really like they're showing what type of competence level they have, and how conscientious they are, and their work ethic. And from what I see from every single one of those politicians is they have no work ethic. They should be defunded. They should not. And also in that legislation, they're seeking to Natasha Williams is seeking to give themselves another raise. Like they worded that one well. They were able to draft that legislation.
Oh, so John, they put the work into that one.
They put the work into that one. Yeah.
Did they have the who, what, where, when, why? That one?
Yeah, like, look, we did absolutely nothing. We made everything more dangerous for you. Our city workers hate us. Our residents hate us. The perps don't even like us. Like nobody likes us. And yet, but you know what? We should give ourselves a raise. Yeah, we need a raise. You know, and like I'm really starting to see that like you know, I blame all of us. I do. I blame all of us because we allowed it. We didn't point these things out, or we didn't even care enough to know about these things earlier on. And you know, we're just headed for a bad time in this country because we're continuing to do this. You saw in the mayoral election, that should have been a point where we either demanded there was a different candidate if you guys weren't happy with Curtis Lewa, or we all went around Curtis Lewa. What we did instead was double down, and we went after Andrew Cuomo. And now I love that there's a $12 billion deficit, and people are trying to say it's like Zohran Mamdani's deficit. It's like, no. Would it have been Andrew Cuomo's deficit? No, right? No, because you voted for Andrew Cuomo. No, it wouldn't have been his deficit. So exactly. So you know whose deficit is? It's all of ours because we elected Bill de Blasio twice like morons. I didn't vote for him. So I didn't get what I voted for because I didn't vote for Bill de Blasio one time. Then we got that idiot Eric Adams, and I didn't vote for him in that election either. I didn't vote for him. I didn't want him. I knew it was going to happen. And what did we get? We got forced out of the NYPD for absolutely no reason. We got that moron. He pushed hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers out. And now what do we have? A $12 billion budget. You know, so I blame all of us. You know, we're doing it wrong, and we're still till today. You got your conservative media, you believe, has your back, and they do more to promote people like Zohran Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo, AOC, Althea Stevens than they ever do to help a Republican that actually cares get elected in New York City.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So I have my block, my neighborhood in general has a lot of older people in it. You know. It's a lot of older people who moved out here in the 70s, in the early 80s, right? And I can tell you for a fact, if they call 911 or that 3-digit number and a guy shows up looking like this, okay, they're not likely to open the door. And these are older. These like my neighbor across the street. When I first went to introduce myself, I was wearing like a flat cap. I had my bubble jacket, and I was out there, for a while before she even opened up the door. I'm like, I waved to you a couple days ago. I'm right across the street. She won't open it, and she's an older black lady. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make here is these guys have no sort of standards. Okay, and they're going to be responding to calls from older people who aren't familiar with how the youth dress now. Okay, and these are the people who are going to be showing up when they look not much different from the people who might be who they might have called. And keep in mind, a lot of these guys are street dudes themselves, who they may be reformed street dudes, but they're still street dudes. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make here is that this is not well thought out. There's no thinking in terms of how the public is going to react to when somebody like this shows up to their door and tells them I'm from the city government. They're not going to believe him. I once stopped a older man in the 7-7. We were driving around by Lincoln Place, and I jumped out on him. I didn't see that he was older. I just thought that he was trying to avoid us as we were coming down. and I jumped out. I was at that point I was really quick, you know. So I jumped out and I stopped him against the wall, and the old man freaked out, you know. When he looked at me, and I could see that he was an old man. The dude freaked out, nearly had like a heart attack. There, older black guy from the Caribbean, and it was on me because I didn't pull out my shield. You know, it happened so quickly. When I had him against the wall, I was like, I pulled out my shield. I'm like, look, I'm the police. I'm the police. I dressed like this, okay? Well, I had a hoodie instead of the bubble jacket, but it was a kind of a thick hoodie, and I dressed like this. The older man was terrified of me. I had to tell him, "Hey, listen, I'm the police. I'm the police. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's all right. It's gonna be all right. We're the cops. We're the good guys." So imagine these guys come knocking on grandma's house. You think grandma's gonna be opening up? You think grandma's gonna be in a good state of mind? You know, when you know, she just called for an emergency, and this is the people who respond to them with no sort of a standard or means to identify themselves as a from a government agency, you know. So again, these things aren't well thought out, and we're heading down a road of you know, I don't know where we're headed, you know, because New York City, if these are the people making laws for the city of New York, you have to wonder where we're going to be in the coming years as the fiscal crisis hits.
So I think you brought up a great point. There should be some type of dress code, and I'm sure we're going to be attacked for being a racist podcast, Marlon, because we're talking about black men that are not dressed appropriately doing their job. That's okay. We're used to the hits. Keep them coming. But to me, I think that when we talk about the violence interrupters, this is another program that doesn't work. The diversion program is far too late. You want to divert kids after they already commit the crime. Violence interrupters, also from what I've read and what I know so far, is they get involved after an incident happened. So what are you interrupting? And as violence interrupters, if we're getting involved after a crime is already committed, that means you're already interacting with kids that who are already armed, whether it's knives or guns. They're already involved in beefs because they're part of crews already. So what are we interrupting? It's too late. So this idea that this violence interrupter program is prevention, to me, is just responding after escalation. It's just a response. Violence interrupter program is a response. Diversion program for young, which we don't know, that's another response. It's a reaction. It's not actually diverting something. If you're diverting something, you want to divert it before it happens. If you're a violence interrupter, you want to interrupt before the violence happens. It's just in their names, and it should be in their mission. But that's not what we see happening. If the violence interrupters are getting involved and the crime has already been committed, the kid's already on, they're already having beefs, they're already part of crews, it's a little bit too late. It's just a reaction. It's just a response. It's just a show. It doesn't actually mitigate the problem. To me, it's just one big show. And Marlon, you're absolutely right. And that's why those guys, they know it. That's why they don't even care how they're dressed, because they know they're all playing a game. They're all part of the show, and they're getting paid. Because if not, if it works, then show us the data. Show us the data on how the violence interrupter program has mitigating shootings. John, have you seen any data? I've looked on, I cannot find any data to show that, hey, in this area, you know, let's talk about the Queen of Rebrand, Jessica Tisch. In this zone where we have Q teams addressing quality of life, how many violence interrupters are there? Or how many teams and how many shootings did they deter? I have not seen any data. Can anyone tell me? I have not seen it.
You want to laugh? I got a notification from the Post that said January was the safest January ever. but
there you go.
Gone. They pulled it down. They posted it and they pulled it right down. So we already like foreshadowed that one, right? And like that was coming. Everyone knew that was coming. You know, don't let a good spout of very cold weather deter you from taking credit for a crime being down. You know? Hysterical. Yeah, look, the whole thing's insane, man. You know, if we went through all the legislation today, it would be like a comedy show, because people would be like, this isn't real. None of this stuff is real, but unfortunately it is. this weekend, Jimmy Wagner had a great event at the Kings County Donald J. Trump Republican Club. Apologies, I wasn't able to make it. I feel terrible. You know, he had great speakers there. Scott Lebedo, you know, Tremel Thompson was there, Michael Caine, Rachel Maniscalco, Dr. Naomi Wolf. So many great people. You know, they actually gave me an award, and that made me feel like more of a scumbag for not going, but I just couldn't do it. My wife and daughter were on a girls trip. I told them before I even put the event together, I wasn't going to be able to do it. There's no way I was going to be able to leave. So, you know, he gave me an award for Andrew Breitbart Digital Courage Award for fearlessly challenging narratives and energizing grassroots voices online. So if you guys aren't, definitely check out the Donald J. Trump Republican Club. You could join for free. You could be a paid member. I am a paid member of the club. I think it's really something that's been missing in politics, especially in New York City. But I think it's something that's you're gonna start to see branch out throughout the entire city. And I think you want to get in on the ground roads of it. It's nonpartisan, even though it's named after Donald J. Trump. They have Democrats come speak, they have Republicans speak, and they're bringing everybody together to talk about the issues. And Jimmy Wagner, he's my attorney, but he also became a good friend of mine, and he's he's representing me for the vaccine case. But I gotta say, you know, in only a year, he's become a major power player throughout New York State. Bruce Blakeman gave a speech. Chairman of the Republican Party, Ed Cox, spoke while he was there. And I think I see big things for the Kings County Republican Club. And so, you know, definitely check them out. Check them out on social media, online. You know, join. I recommend you guys join in and listening to what they're saying. So it was pretty cool. Again, sorry I didn't make it, but I did catch a lot of the clips online. They did a YouTube video, so check it out. I shared it on my social media.
Nice job, brother. Well deserved. You definitely deserve that. You were out there when it wasn't trendy to be on social media when you retired. And yeah, shout out to you, brother. That was, you know, as I said before, when we started podcasting together. And, you know, I was still on the job, and you were going at it for a couple months already. You were like this radical all over the internet. And I remember the guys at the job, they're like, yo, you see what this guy's saying? And I'm like, who? Johnny Mac. I'm like, another guy, like, Johnny Mac, who the fuck is that? You know? And then they showed me, I'm like, oh, we were rookies together. I know John, you know? And I was like, oh, I was great. I was proud of you. And that's when I reached out to you. I said, dude, when I retire, we got to get this thing going. And so, yeah. Good shit, bro. Well deserved, man. Well deserved.
Thanks, yeah.
Yeah. Well deserved, John. You know, John started this thing, and I wouldn't be here without John. You know,
that's right. He's the rock and the glue to the network, man. No doubt about it.
Yep. And I wouldn't have even spoken out online if it wasn't for John, and you too, Eric, because I was watching the show long. I was a viewer long before I, you know, was a member of the Finest. So
Maul was a hidden sniper, man. We appreciate it, brother.
Yeah. No. Look, it is what it is. Look, obviously it was necessary. People enjoy it. And I think it's a good outlet for not just for us, retired guys, active guys. You know, I think it's just an opinionated voice. And you know what's funny about it too is like all the labels we get and everything we get, we get so much more love than anything, I think. And you know, and the thing is, people don't agree with everything we say. And that's fine. Like, I don't want you.
We don't even agree with each other sometimes.
Yeah. So, like, you know, I think you know, it was like I don't think it's a revolutionary thing to go out there and give your opinion. Unfortunately, it still is in this country, and that needs to go away too. Where you're just giving your honest opinion that you would at your dinner table. Like, we have to make this country back to the point where the conversation you have with your family at your dinner table is the same conversation you're having at work. It's the same conversation you're having at school. It's the same conversation you're having in the park when you're meeting people. And that's because it's coming from your honest heart, and it's coming from your heart. That's it. Like, not for any other reason. There's no narrative behind it. And for some reason, it's not okay to tell the truth in this country any longer. And it's 100% not okay to tell the truth if you're a member of the NYPD or even a retired member of the NYPD. And that needs to change. But I'm glad people are getting more comfortable doing it. And, you know, thanks to you guys, we hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. So that, you know, that's all from you guys. You know what I mean? Hard work of everybody on the team, but really it's the audience. And, you know, we appreciate you guys. And, you know, we think that the platform's going to get a lot bigger in 2026 going into 2027. And, you know, so thank everybody.
You know what? With that being said, there's a couple of great comments over here, friends and listeners. I love it. And they're asking if Marlon would go back and take the sergeant's test. You know what? I don't know if that's going to happen right now, but I tell you what, with 100,000 subscribers, we are triple the amount of size than the NYPD. And if I'm right, if the numbers are what I think they are, we're actually 4 times the size of the NYPD. With that being said, I'm going to promote Marlon to first grade detective right now by the Finance Unfiltered. You don't need the NYPD. You're the first grade detective for the Finance Unfiltered. So you know what? Shout out to Marlon. We just promote him. John, you had an award, and so does Marlon. As far as I'm concerned, you're the first grade detective for the Finance Unfiltered family. For 100,000 subscribers, you're the first grade detective. So you know what? We don't need the NYPD. The NYPD needs you. So shout out to that. And really, all kidding aside, we didn't reach 100,000 subscribers on our own. Thank you to our friends, listeners, and even the haters for the unique engagement, for really pushing the algorithm and get involved in the conversation. It means a lot. Thank you again for all the support that I received with Derek, and the support I continue to receive today. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. If it wasn't for this network, I don't know if we would have been able to battle as much as we did. So thank you to everyone. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Hunter, Samara asked me if I go back, would I take the sergeant's test? And that's what I was answering. I would absolutely do it now. You know, I didn't want to when I was on the job. I like being a detective, you know, but you know, things change, and sometimes there's a phrase about history pushing you to you know, step up and do things that you may not have originally wanted to do, you know. But yeah, we thank you guys for helping us reach to 100K. You know, no meme for that yet, you know, but you know, maybe 150K or 200K. I'll give you a new video for that.
Sean Shelby hopping his way to see it.
Yeah, this came really quickly too. You know, I mean, just like a month and a half ago, we were at 60K, and now we're at 100K. But yeah, you know, if you guys missed the point about what we were talking about earlier, it's that we just want standards, okay? And we want the best for the city. And think of it, if you called 911 and a cop showed up who was a slob and a mess, you would say, geez, we don't have standards anymore for the police department. But now the city is saying, let's bring in people who we have no standards, no training, no metrics to measure their successfulness or their effectiveness, and that's okay. We're supposed to be okay with that. Okay. That's the point. That's the point. If these people had all of that training, standards, and metrics to measure their effectiveness, they would be the police department. Okay. So why are we doing this now? Why is this okay? Why aren't we, instead of doing this, pushing to make the police department the best it can be, which is what is one of our goals on this podcast. So we just want there to be a better police department, a better NYPD, and you know, a better New York City, instead of accepting mediocrity. You know.
Hey Marlon, maybe the Fire's Unfiltered. Maybe we'll come out with a 3-digit code also, and the city council could put a law that if you're an idiot and you have no idea who to vote for, you call the Finance Unfiltered. You press 444, and then you call the Finance Unfiltered. Like, yeah, no, that's a dumb pick. Yeah, that's stupid. Put us in the rotation. Give us a 3-digit number. Maybe we'll go with 999. 999 sounds good.
Croita.
John, maybe we'll go with one number. This. Fuck you. That's it. One number. That's it. Call number 1.
F you, baby. Finance Unfiltered. You know?
F you.
So Croita said, but Juju said this was an insignificant, going nowhere podcast. I thought he was some genius professor. Look, here's one thing. You got to take things from where it comes from. And, you know, in life, right? Any criticism you get, if it comes from someone that you could care less about, I mean, that's you
Yeah,
gotta worry about. I mean, look at Juju. Like, you could take any show that's ever been on this network, the lowest amount of watch show on this network, from whether it was from the beginning or to now, whatever, and you compare that lowest watch show to the amount of books that Professor Juju sold. I mean, it dwarfs his book sales, right? Like, I'm not, you guys know me. I'm not a what do you call it? An academic by any stretch of the imagination, right? 60 college credits, not me and Kaz are alumni of the same bullshit college, right? And when I write my book, I guarantee you this: my day one sales in an hour will take all of Juju's master's degrees, and they will take his lifetime sales for his book will be beat in 1 hour the day I unleash my book. So, who cares about Juju? He's a loser. He said, I think his words and words of a lot of people on the dream team was, the self-proclaimed NYPD dream team was, this is it's a small podcast that nobody listens to. So, and I think they've been proven extremely wrong. I mean, even this morning, we have over 1,000 people on here right now watching the show live, joined in the chat with us. And that's not a small accomplishment, because I look at a lot of these big podcasters. They come out of nowhere. They have millions in funding. They're backed by big media. They're backed by big organizations. They're backed by these billionaires. And we have more actual real engagement than they do, organic engagement. They show for millions of views, they show millions of comments, but when you look at it, you don't even know anybody. You don't even know if it's real. And so I think we're building a really big media platform here. So it's a good thing. So anybody got anything else before we read the super chats? Get out of here.
Yeah, I just want to say this is a great comment. I actually think it would be an interesting episode. And so fabulous DJ says there needs to be a show on this topic. Is a master's degree cop better than a 60 credit cop? So I think to talk about education and how that affects policing, I think it would be a great episode. I think we kind of touched on it one time when we talked about Jessica Tish when she lifted the college for recruitment, but I think an episode talking about that. It's a great topic. So anybody has ideas for topics, always plug it in. I think that's definitely a good idea. Does academia make you a better cop or not? Great for an episode. Any thoughts on that? What do you guys think?
I think that's a hell of a discussion, because it diverges into how the West has been shifted to its more academia and more abstract thinking than actually hands-on experience and hands-on knowledge. And that I think part of the reason why the West is in the shape that it is because we've gone that route. Whereas, like, just as an example, China seems to be going to the place where you got to make stuff. And if you don't make stuff in America, look at the shape that we're in. We don't have enough jobs. We buy everything from overseas, and I think this is how you get to police departments with everything is centralized at the top, and there's no agency on the bottom, and there's no decision making at the bottom, because everyone is been groomed to think that the people with the more degrees, and the more abstract academic thinking are the ones who know best. So let me wait for instructions to come trickling down the chain.
Yeah, I think it's a huge misnomer. One, I think school teaches you how to be compliant, right? We're going to give you this information and you're going to give it back to us the way that we like it. So I think the longer you're in school, the easier you are to be indoctrinated. And I think it's the less outside the box you think. Now, it's not true for everybody, because I've talked to a lot of people that are highly educated, and I love the conversations with them, and we have great conversations, but I also think at the same time, mistaking education for intelligence is a really big mistake. And especially when we're talking policing, I'll take a street kid any day. I don't care. I don't care his level of education. I don't care if he barely finished high school or not. I will take a street kid any day and make a great cop out of him over some kid that comes from a master's degree that doesn't have the street knowledge, was not out there in New York City streets, interacting with different communities, with different cultures. So, I've spoke to so many people in my life that I think the world would see as dumb, whether they're blue collar, they're in the trades, they're police officers that only needed a high school education. And I think you get blown away a lot by how intelligent actually a lot of people are, and then it never fails to it never loses me the fact that I know so many people with master's degrees that are absolute morons. It's like, oh, okay, you could write an essay and it will be worded perfectly grammatically correct, but you can't explain it to me. You can't have an argument with me. You can't have a discussion with me. And, and how does you having a master's degree or whatever school you went to translate into street smart, translate into common sense? And often the education does not translate into common sense or intelligence. And so I don't, I think I laugh now when I look at all these executives and even some that are in retirement now. And I'm like, when the F did everybody become a genius in policing? Like, when did you all become academians? Like, did you have to give up your spine? Did you have to neuter yourself? Did you have to castrate yourself in order for you to have this intellectual thing going on? Because I've noticed lately, and we meant to talk about it, but I know we're getting up there now. But we were going to talk about Brian O'Hara, how recently John Schell and Tariq Shepard had did an episode on the Artie Idala Power Hour. They called it True Crime Thursday. You guys could thank us for getting you some views, because nobody would have watched it if not for us. But they had Brian O'Hara on, and it was basically, it wasn't an interview. It was just saying how, like, oh, well, no one knows the situation you're in. They've never sat in the chair. It's easy to judge from the outside. And all those things are true. But they didn't ask one question that was related to anything. And when you look at Brian O'Hara, although he's a muscular, physical guy, when he talks, he's an academic, right? He all of his academia awards, all of this stuff. And so for those are supposed to be accomplishments in life. And those are supposed to show how great he is. And now you see the king of the public safety grift, Bill Bratton. He's also pushing Brian O'Hara. What a great guy he is. Oh my God. And what we're all watching him, how he's interacting in Minneapolis, how he's kowtowing to Mayor Jacob Fry, how he's leaving ICE agents out there in this bad situation, and he's leaving the public vulnerable to very dangerous situations. You're seeing that all of the master's degrees in the world, all of the support in the world from the king of public safety grifters and the new kids on the block that are trying to be public safety grifters. It doesn't matter when you don't have a spine and when you don't have a pair of balls. And, he's a perfect example of everything that's wrong in policing, especially in management policing, because we've put so much emphasis on education instead of putting emphasis on character and integrity.
So I could say this. I was a street kid also, a New York City kid, grew up on the streets. I lived in almost every borough except for Manhattan. So I lived in Bronx, Brooklyn, Staten Island, Queens, all four boroughs on the streets, playing basketball, getting into fist fights as kids, just kid stuff. And I could say this, and I went to the Marines and I went to college. And I think what happens is, this is in my opinion. So I think that it's not that necessarily people who are in academia are stupid. I think what happens is, when people are so involved in their studies in academia that they lose real life consequences, because they become insulated and isolated in school. They're so bogged down with what's going on with school. And a lot of what they do in academia is based on theories and framework. And I know, because I was a history major in college. And so a lot of what you do is based on theory, framework, comparisons. And so you're isolated, insulated in this area, and you learn how to read between the lines when it comes to study. Like for me in particular, studying history and stuff like that. But I think the difference is, so academia studies policing, it studies crime from a very insulated, isolated position. But when you're actually doing police work, you're getting you're not studying it. You're getting the real life consequences of what happens at 3 and 4 a.m. versus what happens in theory. So that's why I think there's a difference. So I don't think I don't think academia makes someone more intelligent for policing, or less academia makes them less inept. I actually think it's just that I think that to be effective in policing, you need real life consequences. You need to have been on the street where you're not insulated, isolated, to actually understand consequences. And then academia, to me, is a subsidiary, more like when we talk about AI, it's a tool to assist you to be effective, right? When, to read between the lines, to have some organizational skills. But I think you're right, John. And Marlon, I think kind of alluded to it also. I don't think it's a measure of intelligence, right? It's more of a measure of commitment and dedication. I think I could have got my master's or even a PhD if I continued on with school. I just found myself, with family and doing other things and policing. But I think it's just like studying for the sergeant's test. I don't think it's necessarily a measure of intelligence. It's a measure of dedication and commitment. And I think that's what it is when it comes to academia. But I think because, especially when people start to get to the master's level and they start writing thesis and theories, they get really insulated, isolated to this area, and they're not facing real life consequences. So that's where I think the difference is. So I don't think there's a measure of intelligence, but I think having street life consequences and real life exposure is far more. I think it has more monetary value and more value, especially doing policing, than someone who's isolated and insulated to academia.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, this is what we're talking about. Bratton made a post about the chief, and the it's on his Twitter, so it's on Twitter X right now. But yeah, you see, I think somebody made a comment in the chat. KB, he says academia becomes a silo, and oh crap, I gotta figure out how to get rid of that, John. But I think I accidentally X'd it out. But that I think that's the problem with academics. I think they do become a silo and a bubble, and everything becomes theoretic and abstract and relative to context, and there's no right or wrong, and that's a big problem. And you're seeing that. We saw that in the radio show that Tariq and Chell were on, the RDI Dalla Hour. Okay, about I think this was Thursday, right? And Chief Chell says that Chief O'Hara of Minneapolis Police he picked a side. He picked a stance, and people aren't happy with it, And he didn't point out that the stance was wrong, He just said he picked a stance, and people aren't happy with it, but they've never been in a position to pick a stance, So basically, you should shut up, And what does that mean? You picked a position that's wrong, that just makes life difficult for the cops that you lead. It's as simple as that. It's not that complicated. But with these academics, it's all abstraction, and everything is relative, and there's no right, there's no wrong, when clearly clearly it was wrong, and it's ineffective, and it's led the escalation has led to 2 people's deaths so far, and it's made life more difficult for those cops and law enforcement in general in Minneapolis.
Oh, well said. And Tish too. She made the same stand, and it was the 100% the wrong stand. And and like the thing is, like, I wasn't sitting there saying like, oh, they should be beating him up into a corner. I get it. You know the guy, you like the guy. He seems like a nice guy, but the public deserves questions. If you're going to be this media head and then this media consultant, like, the public deserves questions. And you could ask a hard question and be completely respectful. Like, and so John Shell and Tariq Shepard have clearly showed they have the complete inability to do that. I know a bunch of people are asking about, I forget the lieutenant's name, lieutenant that got arrested for shoplifting. What do we think about it? I mean, like, what is there to say? You're a 30-year lieutenant, you're doing a paid detail, and you steal a $250 charm. You're an absolute loser. I wish I was still working so I could have put the handcuffs on you myself and made fun of you in the cell. He's not going to lose his pension. He should absolutely get fired. I would 100% support him get fired. He's not going to lose his pension. Obviously, it's a petty larceny. It's a misdemeanor. But does he deserve to have a retired ID card? Does he deserve to have his HR 218? Does he deserve to get a good guy letter? Absolutely not. But seeing the incompetence and seeing how things happen in this job, I wouldn't be shocked if, in fact, he winds up getting all of those things as well. And just another disgrace, because you see how my good friend right here, Mullen Bethel, was terminated for absolutely no reason, remains terminated for absolutely no reason. And it's not just because of that I'm saying that this lieutenant deserves to lose his job and deserve to be fired. It's because of what he did. I always say that, like, if you signed up to be a cop and then you think now you're going to be a gangster, you're actually worse. If you wanted to be a gangster, but then you became a politician, you're absolutely worse. You should have just had the balls to be who you want to be. And so, guy's an absolute dirtbag. I don't know what you guys think about it, but I hope he gets fired, and he should get fired quickly. And if, and that, I really got nothing else to say about it. And if you're watching this, go fuck yourself.
Like, you know what? We learned, like, integrity just means nothing no more with the NYPD. Yeah. Integrity is, like, if Mullen's integrity got him terminated, because Mullen, if you would have lied, made a fake vaccine card, you would lose 70 days and be on the job. Listen, is there a klepto disease? Absolutely. I think there's a klepto, but with 30 years on the job as lieutenant, you're a complete idiot. But at the same token, do I think he should retire with a good guy letter? Absolutely not. But think about it. Jeffrey Maggi retired into bliss. Paul Saraceno left. He's fine. So if we make the comparison, unfortunately, it's so bad at the top. If we make the comparison, arguably, you could say what this guy did is not that bad compared to others. And that's the reality.
Walk down the sunset, middle of a federal investigation. Kaz is getting hired in the middle of federal investigations. Shell's gotten 3/4 in the middle of federal investigations.
You don't even know what ankle hurts him.
Yeah. Tanya Kinsella, it's like, oh no, she wasn't in charge of overtime. Now she's implemented all these new policies.
Thank God. Yeah. She's a real pioneer.
Yeah. She's getting a golden award. Anyway? She's getting an award for overtime management.
What did this guy steal anyway? The memes were hilarious.
There was like a charm on a bag or something.
Oh yeah, that's what I saw. The Lucky Charms memes. They were funny.
And supposedly they had him on camera, like putting it in his pocket.
What a dummy.
Could you imagine you're like the store manager and you're like, what the are you kidding? We were paying this guy to like stop theft and he's stealing?
Yeah, he's making he's making $60 an hour and he's stealing at the same time. What a dope.
And the other thing is that, like, I got so many messages after that about what this guy's done. Like, he's absolutely the spies that he threw out the New York City Police Department. And like, like, it's one thing if it came from cops. It's like the majority of people that are sending it are captains and lieutenants sending. But like, I'm like, I can't verify it, so we're not going to talk about it. Yeah, like, unless you could show me actual proof of what he's done. But like, just put it this way. If even a hair of what it was sent to me is true, this guy doesn't even deserve to be a cop ever.
But John, if you really think about it, this guy misses the opportunity. He should have been promoted to deputy commissioner in this administration. He would have fit perfect.
No, absolutely. All he's got to do is lie. All he has to do is lie on the stand and in his GO15, and he'd be a perfect shoe-in for Eric Adams.
Yeah, that's what I say. You know what? Promote him. That's what I say. You know what, Zoran? Promote him by rocket fuel. And have him take Kaz's job, because there's no difference. Kaz had no credibility on the job. Neither does this guy. He fits perfect. Fuck him.
They call him John Screws Ruiz.
Oh yeah, he's screwed. All right.
Yeah. Well, So.
Yo, Patrick Donnie's upset with you. Yeah, he wants your yellow bag back.
My Muay Thai. Oh, I got to do a video later. No Muay Thai bag though for that video, but yeah. But he says where did the yoga studio have a Muay Thai strike, man?
Hey Pat Donahue, all we have to ask is I guarantee John does his push-ups and his workouts before he does his video, so he's all swelled up. I used to do that before I go out to a club or something. I was young. I'm like, let me do like 100 push-ups and try to get swelled up. Not when you're young,
Hunter, I don't know why you keep asking about the Sal Greco show. Well, Sal is doing his own thing. He's on the Sal Greco show. Yeah. I mean, if you like, we wish him all the best, all the luck, but we're not in coordination. Why is he going on while we're on? I don't know. To ask Sal, like, has nothing to do with us. Are we gonna end our show because he's going live? No. I
Hold on, stop. Yeah.
So I know you just like the 30th time you asked today. It's like, come on. We wish Sal the best. He's doing a good job. I mean, he does a good job. He puts out a lot of great stuff. No hard feelings for Sal, but he's not on the network, so we're not really concerned with what he does or doesn't do.
Yeah. Hey, quick thing before we go further, John. That book that John's been talking about is fantastic, guys. Okay.
Oh, you've been reading it?
No, I'm gonna read it because what happens is I was looking at the Epstein stuff again, and I noticed the prevalence of a certain zip code in the names in his black book, and that comes back to the Upper East Side. And so I kept doing some more research, and the book came up about the Gilded Age and about the Lexau committee and about corruption back then. I was like, holy shit, it's the same zip code, So
Tenderloin, baby.
Yeah. So that, as we were just talking a minute ago about the corruption and about how I haven't had due process yet, this lieutenant is getting due process. I thought of a quote that I saw from an article that referenced the book. The book, for you guys, is called The New York Exposed: The Gilded Age Police Scandal. So it's on my reading list, and it's just a lot of what we talked about, like John mentioned before, keeps intersecting with that time frame. And I'm like, I read a little part of it. I'm like, holy crap, John is right. This is exactly, this is like now,
Full circle, right?
Yeah. So here's a little article by the actual writer. This is a little piece by the writer of that book. And he states that the city's stockbrokers, bankers, and real estate developers and hotels cared little about police corruption as long as the cops kept their boots firmly on the neck of organized labor and radical activists. Basically, as long as they kept their boots on the blue collar, they didn't care about corruption. As long as they did, they worked for them, for that class of elites. They didn't care. So that came to my mind when as we mentioned, that lieutenant, how he's getting due process, but I got no due process and I get fired because I didn't take the stupid vax. Okay. And it's that they're okay with it, they're okay with to a certain extent with it because it's the agenda, it's going, whereas in my case they're not, because I'm going against the agenda. And I'm going to reference this book a lot. I'm sure John's going to keep talking about this book, but I think again, there's a lot of what happened back then that it's just spot on, as to what's going on right now.
Yeah, outstanding. I think that it's come full circle. That's one thing I learned as a history major, that history does repeat itself, and that's the whole point of analyzing history, is because it's the best reflection of the future as a prediction. Prediction of the future is a reflection of the past, and we've come full circle. Even when we had retired Detective Jurgensen on this show. If you have not seen it, it's an old show. Please watch it. We talk about the Circle of Six. You see the politics that were fermented and cemented in the 70s, very comparable to what's going on now. And what I've learned, what we've read now, in comparison to when I read the Circle of Six, I love that book. Amazing book. And have a Randy Jurgensen on here. And I want to read that book you mentioned, John, also, especially since you showed some excerpts. I think now is even worse. And the reason why I say it's worse is because we've learned from all the failures that have happened and how to move forward. And yet what we've done with these corrupt administrations is utilize what they learned from the corruption to try to further it and get away with it even more now. And that's, to me, really, it's kind of evil.
No, yeah. It's just it's wild, man. It's wild because like the thing about like the Gilded Age is that's like significant to me is like the issues that we're facing right now are the same issues that they were facing right at the inception of the New York City Police Department. And then like everything that they put in to attempt to change, it was just like a smoke and mirror move, and nothing's changed anything. So basically, like the elites still run the New York City Police Department. Law, discipline, justice is all arbitrary based upon who you know. And it is what it is. All of the people that run the New York City Police Department are all political appointees, and every portion that they highlighted that was a problem in the early days of the New York City Police Department, it's literally just take off the time period, take out the cops' names, bring it to 2026. It's the same exact thing, man, and it's pretty interesting, like reading all of it. And the book that got me involved into reading that book was I believe it was the first 50 years NYPD history, like the first 50 years of policing, and it was mayors and police commissioners or something. And that's also a great book, because it's the first book that I ever read that it highlights the mayoral administration, like the first 50 years of mayors. It highlights the mayoral administration, what the guy's politics were, who he appointed to police commissioner, and what they did, and then into the next administration, how they campaigned. And it showed what we've been talking about on this podcast for a long time, is that, like, you cannot say, I am not going to discuss politics, but I want to talk about policing. Because if you say that, if you in fact saying that, what you're saying is, I'm going to completely deny reality, and I just want to fantasize and glorifies and make these fantasies about what policing is, instead of what it is, except and deny what it actually is it's a politically controlled arm of politicians. And although it has its great things, and it could be so good, and we just haven't got there yet, that's a great book too, if you want to learn more about NYPD history. Definitely Circle of Six is wild too. That's a wild book. But that first 50 years, I'm telling you, that gives you a good eye opening in the New York City Police Department. And the one thing that stands out to me is how, like, the guys that know how to play the political game, or play the political game well, they're there for self-serving reasons. They benefit so much from the grift. Yep. It's a public safety grift. There was a police commissioner, Devery. I put a video out about a parade. I think it was a 1889 parade. New York City used to have a police parade. Think about that. Think about how much the police were revered at that time period. They were systemically corrupt, but they were revered too. They had the finest parade, and thousands and thousands of people would come out, and the cops would march. And the guy Devery on the video that I put out, I got it from the National Library of Congress or whatever. You could see him on horseback. You could see him riding, like, and that guy, what's significant about him is, when he leaves the New York City Police Department, they accuse him of being corrupt. He gets fired. He winds up getting his job back. And anyway, he winds up retiring later on. But when he leaves, he buys the New York Yankees. Think about that. The guy was a cop. Like, they weren't making anything, and he buys the Yankees. And now you're seeing all of these executives leave the New York City Police Department, and they're walking out with these ginormous pensions, all of these big lucrative contracts. Their consulting businesses are getting funneled with all this money. And it's like, wait, what was that guy doing when he was at work?
You know what I like, John? So being a history major, before we go to the super chats right now, the coffee donuts, I discussed a lot of some of my studies are like different ages, and the Gilded Age I really like, which is why I want to read this book. Not even just because policing, because the Gilded Age reminds me of what's going on right now. Because during the Gilded Age was huge economic boom, was all the industrialization, was all revolution, right? And people were getting rich. There was all these elites, and then what happened? There was no middle class. You had like super extreme poverty, and it was all everything was based around corruption. The elites and the poverty, and there was no middle class. And that's why I see what's going on right now also, right? Super elites, poverty on the streets, right? You see it in New York, San Francisco, and there's no middle class, So I think that's why I like the Gilded Age. So definitely good books. We'll get into it. I guess let's get into coffee and donuts, unless Molly anything to add.
No, but Pat Donahue, yeah, I'm sorry, Pat, if I was a little excited by the book, but I happened to find a PDF online, but it was missing like the first 50 pages. So I just quickly went through it, and I actually found another quote that was fantastic too, but I didn't save it, But when I read the quote, I'm like, holy crap, this is the police foundation. And
right off the page. It's like,
yeah. And for those of you who aren't aware, the police foundation was actually started by one of the co-founders was Lawrence Tish, who's Jessica Tish's grandfather. So think of it. Her grandfather helped start the police foundation and the ABNY, right, which is a big real estate association that heavily influences New York. He helped start it in the 70s. And then we get to, by the time the 90s comes around, his son, Andrew, takes the, or the early 2000s rather. By the 90s, his son, Andrew, was already on the board. And by the 2000s, his son is chairman. So it's like that family has had significant influence over the police department via the foundation since the 1970s. Yeah.
I'd love to know who was tax number 1. That'd be awesome if we could ever find out like who actually got number 1 for their tax number. That'd be cool.
Yeah, and this was the book that I mentioned. Even though it has a foreword by the King public safety grifter himself, William J. Bratton, NYPD's first 50 years, politicians, police commissioners, and patrolmen, Bernard Whalen and his father, John Whalen, wrote it. Great book. If you're into politics and you're into New York City history. Great book. So someone said, is this the book club? Hey, look, we're 3 weird guys, so sometimes we could, we might have a book club one day.
Yeah. That's actually not a bad idea. The Fires and Filter book club, didn't we talk about that, Marlon? Like the book of the week or the book of the month that we could talk about.
Yeah.
I like books.
Yeah.
Wish I liked books when I was going through school as a kid. I didn't even have the patience for it. But growing older, I like books. Sit there sometimes and smoke a cigar. I read my book. I love cigars, by the way. So yeah, let's do it. Coffee donuts.
Yeah. And just read Ron's statement real quick. He just said, that's a true statement, John. I never wanted to discuss politics on the executive perspective, but it's impossible not to with the way politics runs law enforcement and has infected the profession.
That's right.
True.
Shout out to you, Ron Layson. Great. We should quote that. Very good.
No, yeah. No, it's true, man. I'll be honest, I didn't realize it for a very long time until it was too late. So it is what it is. So.
If I would have realized that, I wouldn't be on the street getting guns anymore. I'd be like, whoa, okay. I didn't realize I was the political pawn until I had 8 sets of charges set on my desk.
They were like, just get rid of him.
Yeah. There you go.
He's no longer useful to us. Get rid of him.
I was the useful idiot.
Let him eat cake.
Yeah. Thanks.
So 516 Diecast, Pio Affronte, present for duty, wishing all a safe week. What an incredible pleasure and honor to have had the opportunity to work for either one of you. Chris, thank you, brother. Appreciate it. It's told to you so back when. Best cop in the world is Jack Frost. No one is out. And crime is at historic lows, people. Jessica Tish will do her victory lap. Zohran Mondani will do his victory lap. Everybody will take their victory lap, and really, Mother Nature should get the award because it has absolutely nothing to do with their dumbass policy of having cops stand out in the cold with no one on the street. It's nothing they did.
How many cops are going sick for frostbite? If you get frostbite, you better go. You should flood their sick desk right now. Like I was out in 10-degree weather, frostbite.
It's told you back slave water.
Yeah.
They're talking about
water. Jessica Tish.
They want a meme too, Marlon, about this. They're talking about Tish when she was at the podium and she
was stumbling on her words.
I keep forgetting about that.
Yeah.
I get something. That shit was hilarious.
They love slave water. So. Oh, and I got a message while we were on here. They said the only reason that Field Force was canceled on Thursday had something to do with the chains. They couldn't get the chains on the vans on time. It had nothing to do. It had nothing to do with the cops. It had nothing to do with taking.
See that I find believable. That makes more sense. I was giving shout out to LaPetri here because to me he's a total jellyfish. I was surprised he stepped up. But that's makes
probably
sense.
Why someone sent it. Yeah, that's probably why someone said. They said it had absolutely nothing to do with that. It was everything to do with they couldn't get chains on the vans. So
hey, what do you think about this? Hunter says, does Kaz and Adams get credit for 100,000? No, if it wasn't for Kaz and Adams, we would have about $1 million right now. That's what it is.
Look, I'll say one thing about Adams. I think the guy was a complete disgrace, but character wise and funny wise, he said a lot of funny shit. Like he said, and he made a lot of innuendos about us. Like, and it was funny. Like, oh, I don't care what somebody's tweeting about in Milwaukee. When he said we were in Milwaukee, tweeting about the NYPD from
Man, that was
Milwaukee.
funny. Yeah.
That one. What'd he say? Who would know you if it wasn't for me? Who would know
Yeah,
who you are?
yeah.
Your Twitter's going up. Who do you think he was talking? Like he was, you know. So shout out to Eric Adams for being a closet fan.
I think we're gonna have fun with him, man. I'll have a good time whenever I go out and have some plant-based food, you know. Fried
Look,
chicken.
I think the guy's hysterical.
Yeah,
I just think what he did to Marlon, what he did to Dina Clark, I just think what he did to all these great people, I just think it's unforgivable. I don't have no hate in my heart for the guy, but does he get a little credit for it? I mean, I guess we kind of narrated it his disgraceful mayoral administration. So yeah,
I think it wasn't Kaz and we have $1 million. Well, maybe Shell too.
Well, and that's the other thing is they did work directly against us. I mean, you know, that's the other part of it. It's like, you know, a lot of people watch this podcast, get their content from this podcast. A lot of major media networks and heads. So, you know, they get their talking points too. You know, so you know we don't get enough credit for that. And notice we don't really have a lot of advertisers, and you know it's because we tell the truth.
Yeah,
we don't have any. It's all right.
We should thank him. I mean, you wouldn't be here if John wasn't here. Eric wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be here.
That's true. Yeah. You know what?
And
I want to give
Eric,
a special shout out to the NYPD failures. Their failures have become our success.
And if Eric was actually a good mayor, you know, Eric wouldn't have had to leave the job either. You know, so would they actually be a finest unfiltered? I don't know.
Well, you know what? You're 100% right. That wouldn't be. You're 100%
good point,
right. You know, and like, you know, and like that's the thing. It's just weird how things happen. And like at one point, I think it was last summer, I was down the Jersey Shore. I was with my daughters. We were hanging out, and like we went on a road trip. We were traveling all over. We went down to the Keys, and the next thing we're in Jersey. Like we were all over the country, right? Well, we were all over the East Coast, not the country, but and I was like, wow. I was like, if it wasn't for Eric Adams, I wouldn't have got to do all this stuff, you know. I'm like, you know, so I kind of didn't go out the way I wanted to, but I went out on my own way. And, you know, I kind of have Eric Adams to thank for it because he's a scumbag. And I would have probably just worked myself till I was 60 years old, missed all the time frame with my kids, not stepped into any of this stuff. Right. And so, yeah. So if it wasn't for Eric Adams, there would be no Finest Unfiltered. You're 100% right. Yeah.
So you know what? Shout out to the #1 contributor for the growth of the Finest Unfiltered, Eric Adams. Thank you very much.
Finest Unfiltered, baby. All our haters become all listeners when they sit down at the table of success.
That's right. You know? When they get
Eric Adams, baby.
They become
Eric Adams, Kaz Daughtry, John Shout.
Yeah, when they jump in the live chat, exactly. They become the audience. Yeah, baby.
All right, what do we got here? We got Imagine War 316. You shouldn't have to walk on eggshells to do police work. It's a dangerous job as is. Yeah. Cops were more effective and more confident when they had bosses who guided them and, more importantly, had your back.
Well said.
Well said. Look, you know, I think it's bigger. You know, the thing with me is I understand when situations are crazy, you're going to walk on eggshells, right? But it's just the day-to-day that cops face now where they're walking on eggshells for everything, for not dotting their I on a report, for not uploading their body camera. There's just so much. You know, it's a totally different job. So I laugh at like all the older guys that were like, they were beating me up posting that poll. It was pretty, there was some pretty funny ass comments like throughout Facebook and Instagram and shit. But it's just not the same job you were on. You haven't experienced that level of scrutiny. These guys are literally walking on eggshells 24/7, even when they go home. I mean, the job, you were not as accountable as they were. You're just not, and you had much more of a break when you got out there in that car. These guys are on camera on all day long, and then even when they get home, the job's still reaching out. What'd you do here? What happened here? What about this? What about that? So, yeah, I agree. You know. All right, let's go to the next.
Let's get some coffee and donuts. Here we go. Another one.
Slave. No calls on post.
I love it. I told you so back when. It's on
Don't wear
fire
those
today.
good hats either. I don't like them. You should have your 8-point cap on, your ceremonial cap where your
I
ears.
still like slave water. That's the best. Slave water.
How'd you like the photo I did of her on the poem with her sitting in the warm, drinking the tea?
Oh, it's great.
Yeah,
The cops freezing.
I actually thought you were gonna use that for the episode, you know? I thought, oh, that's gonna be the episode, huh?
Yeah, what happened? You chicken that?
I didn't think about it. You know,
Nah.
I didn't think about it. You know,
Yeah.
that's
Cut-
funny stuff.
All the cops are getting hypothermia right now, and she's like, water, hot chocolate.
So
That's
and then for the meme, could we do like a Roman theme so that we don't get the racist? Like we can't do like any down south slave memes.
I
We
love
gotta
that Marlon gets accused of being racist too.
We gotta
That's
do. I know.
hilarious.
Yeah, we can't do any race. It's got to be Roman. You got to be Roman slaves. Okay.
Oh yeah, I got one for that. You know, I got one for that.
Oh, please do it.
I don't
'cause
want any more. I don't want any more organizations coming.
Marlon, right now, city council is coming up with a 3-digit number to stop racist memes. It's coming, dude.
Oh.
Yeah, well, I haven't even started on Williams yet. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we gotta get.
Yeah. Marlon's got to backtrack. The only thing, if Marlon ever went back to the NYPD right now, he'd be the meme maker. That's all. What can you offer us? I can just make memes.
Imagine Wash says, and delegates don't want to lose their cushy gigs and their commands. Again, I'm gonna say it. Like the delegates get a lot of shit, and I'll be the first to say there's a lot of delegates that don't deserve to be delegates, but the majority of them are. It's not really the case, and I think they get left out in the cold. They take all the shit and they don't know anything, and they have no say in anything that happens.
That's true.
I don't blame the delegates. I go for the board. I go right for the board. Yeah, you should make your delegate work for that extra money that they get. Absolutely. They should have to take the brunt of it, but they should also be informed and all that. And I don't really blame the delegate. I never blame even with the whole mandate. I never really blamed any of the delegates because I realized they really don't have a say in any. I mean, I knew that very early on, but I think we all know that very early on. But
yeah, they're just liaisons. We spoke about that. They really have no say. Nothing.
Yeah, they feed them shit and keep them in the dog, just like
Yeah,
true.
That's what you are.
Yeah. Pat Donahue says polish and ShamWow towel for John. So buff and shine his new plaque. It's not a DEA extravaganza shadow box, but it's a nice acknowledgement. Like I'll take funny. I'll take the DJT award every day, over the shadow box, the Eric Adams.
Shine it up. Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious.
It's hysterical. So who we got? We got Modern Samurai. Morning, gents. Great pod. Have a great week. Congrats on 101K subscribers and climbing. Everyone committed. Stay strong. Take care of your fellow men. God bless you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Baby. Thank you, Modern Samurai. Coffee and donuts.
Whoa, look at this one. Rafael Martinez, $100 for 100K. Here, since you guys had 10K, keep it going, gentlemen, and hand salute. Yeah, I mean, look, I think it was cool, but like, to me, I think this platform should be a lot bigger than what it is. I look at all these guys coming up out of nowhere, and I'm like, and I'm just going to say it because I was just talking to someone yesterday about this. Sean Ryan, he comes out of absolutely nowhere. He has millions of dollars in sponsors. And from day one, he has all of these top people on his show. I just feel like you're a controlled narrative. I don't know that that's the case, but that's how I feel. I feel like it's a controlled narrative. And I'll be the first to say I've listened to a lot of podcasts of his, and I think a lot of them were really, really good. But I've listened to some podcasts of his, and I'm like, no. I don't believe a word you're saying, and I don't think you do either. And so I'm not hating on him, but I just see, obviously, we see firsthand what it takes to build a podcast and to grow. And you know, I don't, besides Joe Rogan, I don't know another podcast that's been quoted in the media as much is really goes to, like, the go-to for public safety issues than this one is. So I don't buy those millions. You know, when I look at like a Ben Shapiro, I don't buy that all those people are listening and watching. I think a lot of that shit's bought and paid for. And, you know, I don't think if he goes live, he's going to have 1,000 people talking and people interacting with him, unless it's to like beat him up, you know? So I think we'll keep rocking out, but the numbers are important. It is what it is. I think we should have a lot more than, I think, even the show numbers should be a lot higher than what they are, but it is what it is. Like, what are you gonna do? You know, I'm happy. I'm happy. 10,000, 100K, or relevant, you know?
I'm happy. I just want to say to all the people who said that we would run out of content and go get a life, content never runs out and life is great. So yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. To all the people that said we couldn't, I feel like we're the train that could. Like, yeah, yeah, we're still going, Ron. We're still going. Thank you to the unique engagement we get in the audience. Yeah, we're still going. Sorry, it didn't blow up and fade away like they wanted. Sorry, the unions, they wanted it to be just die and go away. Like, Eric, you're doing great, man. You're going to have a beautiful pension. Just shut up and go away. I'll never forget what I called John. I'm like, John, you want to laugh? They're telling us, just wish we would stop. 5 minutes later, no, hey, what you guys doing is great. Like, oh, wow, okay.
I remember that conversation.
Yeah.
I said to you, I go, he said, what? He said, Turco's just told me we should stop doing what we're doing. I go, he's gonna call you back. And you go, you think he's gonna call me back? I go, he's gonna call you back. Watch. And then he calls Eric back 15 minutes later, and he goes, you guys should keep doing what you're doing. I just thought about it and thought, oh man, you know, because everyone thinks like me and Eric are like these little rats that like we're gonna record our conversation.
Yeah, I would never.
You know, and it's like, you know, it's like,
I'm
gonna call you back, bro. Watch.
That's what I said.
That's true.
I said they definitely think I'm recording. I would never do that, but it was just funny. Like everybody was like, I love how it's when you talk about the NYPD, you know, you're hating on life. Like you're not enjoying. Like what is it? I just want to know what is enjoying life when you retire and do what? What do they consider a enjoyment when you just go get another job? They just don't want to hear you talk. That's it.
I mean, but here's the crazy part is like they obviously do want to hear you talk, right? And they're obviously having the same conversation either in their head or publicly, right? Because it's like, oh, don't talk about it. It's really bothering me. Okay, so it's bothering you enough you had to respond to this post. It's bothering you enough you had to come on the podcast and chat. Like, what do you care, dude? It's like, you know, like when things like I know guys that they left a job and they don't give a shit about it. But they never really did either. And so they went out and they do whatever else they did. They get a different job and they go on and live their lives, or fishing's their thing. And that's what they're into. And that's what they focus their time around, fishing and their kids or the Boy Scouts or baseball. You know, I know cops that are obsessed with their kids' baseball, right? Like obsessed with their kids' basketball, their kids' football, their kids' soccer. And that's great. That makes you happy. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm like, but like when we were doing this and like as it's going on and as it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more people listening to, people are calling me. They're like, you got to stop. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, time out. I was like, you know me since how old? They're like, I don't know, 16, 17. I was like, okay. I was like, when have I not talked about the things that I'm talking about? When do you know me to not talk about politics and not talk about all the shit that's happening around me and all the shit that I see? And they're like, no. You always been talking about that. I was like, so you're asking me to not be myself, or you're just asking me to just not do it on camera? Like, which one is it? You know, and why do you care? And I was like, and at the end of the day, why do you care? I didn't even know you watched podcasts. Like,
yeah, that's even better. I love it too. By the way, shout out to my friends who are still in the NYPD. Like, talk to me and pretend like the podcast doesn't exist. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, they'll have conversations.
It happens all the time, dude. I was like, yeah. You watch the podcast?
Oh, okay, yeah. They pretend like they don't even know the name of it. Like, what's the name of it again? I'm like, yeah, okay, thanks.
Or when they're talking about the podcast, but then they're not mentioning it, and
yeah, exactly.
it's like they're dancing around it. You know, when you're telling me about a podcast. Yeah. You gotta love those people who also come on just to like angry tweet at you, like, "Oh, you're wrong, guys. You're wrong." You know, you're out of line on that, and yet you're watching us every day. You know,
you're right, Marlon. They're slamming on the keyboard, and meanwhile, I am. I'm just laughing. Like, I love when people make fun. I can care less. Who cares? All right.
I love those are my favorite ones, actually.
Okay.
Those are my favorite.
Try to do
ones.
a better job than my cops used to do. Those guys used to rag on me good, man. They were funny.
Those are my favorite ones. I'm telling you. All right, people. All right. So, anything before we run?
No, it's 3 hours and 15 minutes. Let's go. Pat Donnie, it's enough stabbing for you, brother.
All right.
Yeah, we got all the super chats.
We got all the super chats. We're good. Thanks everybody who donated. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys. Thank you for joining us. Also, thank you for helping us get to 100K. You know, we could have never done it without you guys as well. And as we always say, those of you who are regulars in our chat, you're just as part of as much of the show as we are, because the interaction we get from you, the lively conversations we get from you, are all part of the dynamic of the show. So we thank you guys for helping us get there. And, you know, like John and Eric said, we're going to keep pushing, and we're going to keep having those conversations that we need to have.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Then aren't you supposed to be somewhere else right now?
Yeah. That's true. That's true. Yeah. To me, the audience is like the Viagra to the Finest Unfiltered, man. They keep us going up. So I appreciate it. Mikey G says, to be honest with you, I only use this podcast for therapy. Yeah, me too, brother. So, because it sure isn't money. Believe me, it sure isn't money because we ain't getting paid shit. So, yeah, it's therapy for us too. Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, people. We're out of here. Check out 10-4 Tavern tomorrow night. Executive Perspective on Wednesday. Me and Eric will be back Wednesday. We're going to have a guest on, retired NYPD cop. So, it'll be a good show. And, Philadelphia Sheriff Office is hiring. So if any of you guys out there, we're going to post the information for you. All right, everybody, Finest Unfiltered. We'll be back.
Damn, Bill. You ready? Live in the building. I dance on there.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?